Welcome you and call to order the July 11th Port Orchard City Council regular meeting. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're to our first order of business is the approval of the agenda. Mr. Kachardi, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I have two amendments here. The first one will be to remove item number 4C. As we can see, Councilmember Diener is here.
Okay, is there a second to remove his absence? We have a motion and a second to remove item 4C. Any further discussion? You don't even need to make any excuses. Well, all right, so all in favor of removing that item, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That has been removed from the consent agenda. You have one other?
Yeah, the second amendment would be to add item number 7H, and it would be to approve a contract that allows staff to remove a trailer full of hazardous materials.
Okay. So motion to, and a second from Mr. Clausen. Any discussion of adding that item to the agenda? Hearing none, all in favor of adding item 7H for the contract for the approval of the and disposal of hazardous materials, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we've added that to the agenda. Any other amendments to the agenda this evening? Okay, is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Mr. Mayor, I would move to approve the agenda as amended. Second.
Okay, you want to just check, make sure our microphones are on, the red light in front of you? Perfect. All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as amended. Any discussion, further discussion of that? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the agenda has been approved. We are to our first citizens comment period. And before we get to that, I'm wonderful to see this many people in the audience. I wish we had this many people more often. I'm going to go out on a limb here and assume that many of you are here for the tiny home presentation. So out of respect for the presenters, we're not going to take testimony or comments at that presentation. There's 2 points to make public comment in the meeting, and one of them is right now. And you have each person has up to 3 minutes to make comment. There is a second portion, comment period at the end of the meeting. So if you wanted to wait until after you saw the presentation and make a comment, that would be an appropriate time too. I just don't want anybody to be disappointed or be raising their hands in the back of the room during that presentation or right after that presentation, because then we're going to jump into our business items, and after the business items, we'll have another public comment period where you can make comments or testimony. So just want to lay that out there. So we are at our first citizen comment period. So is there anyone wishing to comment at this time? Yes, Ms. Whittleton. So just step up and identify yourself, and you have 3 minutes. Yep, we're hearing you.
I'm Alyssa Whittleton, and I'm just reading what my husband wished to share with you, but he's at another meeting, and we're in congruence there as far as our feelings. I'm speaking regarding item 7B on the agenda this evening. It has been over 90 days, and now it is time to move forward with the change to a non-charter code city. During the public hearings and the town hall, there were questions asked about initiative and referendum. Every time the city put anything out regarding the change, initiative and referendum was dangled like a carrot. At the town hall, when asked about initiative and referendum, a couple of council people commented that they did not know enough about that item, yet felt comfortable with the 57 chapters and roughly 400 subchapters that make up RCW 35A, but did not know enough about 8 or so subchapters dealing with initiative and referendum. We can all see unintended consequences with Code City as well as initiative and referendum. I would like to remind you of some numbers. 2,658 is the number of votes cast for all mayoral candidates in the last election. 398 is the number of signatures required to put initiative and referendum on a ballot in the future. To make it clear, I am asking that you support initiative and referendum and include verbiage to that effect in tonight's vote. Here, an example for motion for consideration. I move to adopt an ordinance pursuant to RCW 35A 02020, adopting the classification of non-charter code city for the city of Port Orchard and retaining the mayor-council plan of government under which city currently operates to include initiative and referendum. Ultimately, because it's going to take so much effort in order to bring something up for vote, that it's really going to take a sincere effort to bring forth different items. It's not just oh gee, we just want this. We really have to put effort into bringing something up for a vote. So what I'm saying is, I know cost was a concern as far as people bringing up frivolous things and the city having to pay for it. And yet, without doing this now with the Code City, we will have to bring it to ballot and we'll still have to have that cost. So, what we're asking here is that if people are willing to go through the effort and put forth, all the requirements, then shouldn't they have a say, and shouldn't the city be willing to support that? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Is somebody manning the timer at all? There we go. All right. Anyone else wishing to comment on anything on the agenda this evening? Yes, Kathleen.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Wilson, manager of the Port Orchard Library and president of the Port Orchard Bay Street Association. And I'm here tonight to comment on business item 7F, approval of a special event application for the Port Orchard Bay Street Association Trick or Treat on Bay Street. I know the council has the special event permit application in your packet. I just wanted to let you know that I'm available to answer any questions that the council might have regarding this event. And to let you know, the main purpose for moving our annual trick-or-treat event from Halloween to the Saturday prior to Halloween is to ensure the safety of our children that it will be trick-or-treating. Every year, over 1,000 children and parents participate in the annual Trick-or-Treat on Bay Street event, which is traditionally held on Halloween. Due to the increasing popularity of this event, it's become dangerous. This event usually takes place during rush hour. Very often, the weather is rainy and becoming dark, and then is officially dark, and children dart across the street in front of oncoming traffic to trick-or-treat at the businesses. The moving of the trick-or-treat event to Saturday and the closing of Bay Street for this event, and capitalizing on the success of this already popular event, will be a huge benefit to the safety of our families. It will also provide another wonderful downtown festival that we hope will become an annual event along the lines of Chimes and Lights, but put on by the Port Orchard Bay Street Association instead of the City of Port Orchard. We have a big interest from all the downtown merchants and several community organizations already for events during this event. Closing Bay Street will greatly increase the safety of the event, allowing for hayrides, a costume contest, and a zombie crawl, as well as eliminating the fear of a child being struck by a car. Several years ago, when the decision was made to close Bay Street during the Chimes and Lights Festival, the festival instantly tripled in size. And this will be another marquee event annual festival for Port Orchard that will allow us to showcase our downtown while keeping our children safe. There will be pumpkin carving sponsored by the Fathoms of Fun, a scarecrow contest from the merchants, trick-or-treating at all the merchants, and free haunted houses at the library, and a scary adult haunted house at the Dragonfly Theater. So we have all the merchants on board already. We're just asking the council to approve the application, and especially that street closure. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else wishing to comment on anything on the agenda this evening? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, council members. My name is Karen Vargas. I represent several communities. I represent the New Life Community Development Agency in Bremerton, Washington, also the 172nd Legion on Bainbridge Island, and New Life community development. What I really want to say is I want to comment on the, I guess it's 5B, the tiny home presentation. Our young people have been working diligently with the homeless population since 2008. We took the leadership team to Tennessee to map the homeless for a week. They came back, but what they learned during that week was that there must be equity in the way the resources are distributed within their communities. And that's a concern of mine. I wanted to make sure that when we address the homeless population, that we look at it from a lens of equity, and that those diverse populations are being included in some of the decision making, and that those communities are informed and educated as well. When we found out about the tiny homes, I was kind of unaware, since we have been working with that population for quite a while. When my husband and I moved here from the East Coast through the military, we have housed homeless since 2004 in our homes. And so what it looks like from a cultural perspective is different from very diverse populations, and wanted to know if those conversations were being had with those that are working on the project. And that was what I wanted to bring tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Others wishing to comment on anything on our agenda this evening? Okay, going once. Going twice. All right, I'm going to close the first public comment period. There's another one at the end of the meeting this evening. So we are moving on to our consent agenda. Mr. Clausen?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda as published.
Which I think is as amended.
amended.
As amended, excuse me.
So we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended, and a second. Yes, Councilmember Ashby?
No, I would like a discussion on consent agenda B, the minutes of our work study session.
Okay, we already approved
We already
approved
the agenda, but
Do you-
not the consent agenda.
Correct, so you're wanting to discuss item
I
B?
just-
Go ahead and discuss it.
I'll just, under number 1, discussion and new sign code, the way it reads under, on what would be page 4 of our packet, under council direction, it says sign code to go back to the committee and rework council suggestions, then bring back as a draft at a future council meeting. I would prefer it, because I think the only thing we referred back to committee was the feather sign section.
Correct.
And so I would like that reworded so that it reflected that the only thing that was sent back for rework was the feather sign section.
Okay, did you capture that, Michelle? Okay, so we will amend those minutes to reflect that, because that was the discussion we had that evening. Okay, so any other discussion of the items on the consent agenda? Okay, all in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. We are on to the first of our 2 presentations. We have our lobbyist here this evening, Chelsea Hager, and she's going to give us a presentation on things happening in Olympia. Brianna couldn't make it this evening. If you didn't get her email, they're obviously still working down in Olympia, so Chelsea's here to...
We are. So thank you for having me again. I'd just like to apologize on behalf of Brianna that she couldn't be here this evening. She had a schedule
Chelsea,
conflict.
want to move that microphone up just a little bit? Hear you better.
How's that?
Much better.
Perfect. Okay, so again, Chelsea Hager here. Brianna Murray, my colleague, was not able to be here this evening because of a scheduling conflict. But I'm happy to go through some of the things that have been happening in Olympia, answer any questions if you have any, and then hopefully we'll be wrapped up in Olympia here shortly, and we can look forward to the next session. So I'll go ahead and start by providing you with a quick session overview. The primary task in a long session is to write budgets. Those are the capital, transportation, and operating budgets. Now, this session, we had some additional challenges. We had to decide, or the legislature had to decide how they were going to fund McCleary, which is this 2012 Supreme Court case that determined or held that the Washington State Legislature needed to better fund public education, basic education. Additionally, there's the Hearst Supreme Court decision, which has to do with water, and that was tied to the capital budget this year, and I will explain that further later. Additionally, there was the question about how to extend or whether or not to extend a document recording fee to address homelessness. So given that it's a long legislative session, it's supposed to be 105 days, we technically ended on the April 23rd. Now, because the legislature was not able to pass an operating and capital budget during that time, they were able to pass a transportation budget. The governor called a special session. He then called a subsequent special session, and now we are in our third, and it's set to end here on the 20th. We still have no agreement on a capital budget, so we are at a position where we're trying to figure out what's going to happen next. There are a couple different things that could happen. There could be an agreement on the Hearst decision, and additionally, the capital budget could pass. That could lead to us leaving here before the 20th in Olympia. Additionally, the governor could call a special session. And third, there could potentially be no capital budget outside of just reappropriations this session. You might be wondering, what did the legislature do this session? So I'll start by talking about the fact that they were able to pass a transportation budget. Now, what's great for the city of Port Orchard is that within that budget, there was $2 million allocated to the Tremont Street widening project, which is a great success for the city, and in part because of the great legislative delegation that you have. So that budget passed. There were only minor changes. As you all know, there was a huge Connecting Washington funding package that passed in 2015 and is set to run for several additional biennia. Now, with regard to the operating budget, you might have seen in the news that that budget passed right at the 11th hour before a government shutdown on July 1st. So that budget passed on June 30th, and it's a $43.7 billion biennial budget with $2.6 billion in new revenue. That comes in part from a new tax on bottled water and a tax on extracted fuel. Previously, those were exempted. Additionally, there is the Marketplace Fairness Act that is going to be put into place within the next couple of years. It's going to be through a phased-in approach, and essentially that's just a collection of sales tax through internet providers. With regard to education, $7.3 billion is going to be spent over the next 4 years. That's a historical amount of money that is going to be put into that system. And the operating budget for the first time is over 50% allocated to education, so responsive to that McCleary Court decision. Here in this area and across the entire state, you will see an increase in property tax in 2018. This is going to be a phased-in approach, and the current levy rates are going to go through that time period. And then here locally and across a lot of areas within the state, you'll see a decrease in 2019 and then in subsequent years. I mentioned previously the capital budget. Now, the legislature was able to pass a reappropriation budget, which basically just makes sure that projects that were moving forward from the previous biennia into the next one were able to be reallocated so we weren't getting in trouble with contracts. But the local projects that are often funded in that budget were not a part of that budget that did pass the legislature. So within the Senate, there has been agreement that until a decision on the Hearst Supreme Court case passes the legislature, that they would be unwilling to pass a capital budget, and that's the limbo that we're currently in. And you'll notice that at the bottom of the screen, with regard to the number of bills that have passed the legislature, only 15% of the bills that were introduced at the beginning of the session have passed. On this slide, I've designated which priorities we worked on behalf of the city this session. The green check marks denote that the projects or the different items that we were successful on, and I'll go into greater detail within the next few slides. I mentioned the Tremont Street widening project, a very important project to the city that we've been working on for quite some time. And this was the important year for the legislature to be helpful, and this was the year, and they were, and it was in part because of the great legislative delegation that you have here. And that's a success, and the project just broke ground last week and will be moving forward. Additionally, we worked on the downtown pocket park. Now this project is in the early stages, and really this session we hope to just lay the groundwork for future requests. Now this $300,000 or $309,000 that you're seeing on the slide that was included in a House capital budget is promising, and that suggests that we might be successful in partnership with the state in the future. However, again, the capital budget is a little in the air. We're unsure what the Senate's going to do, so we'll continue our advocacy and look forward to the future on that project. Additionally, we worked on behalf of the West Sound Alliance. Again, as a quick reminder, the West Sound Alliance is a group of 19 different organizations and entities like transit agencies, municipalities like this city. And Brianna Murray and I, on behalf of this city, represent the city's interest to that organization. And really the goal is to make sure that we, as the West Sound, are bringing forward requests, project requests that have to do with transportation in a way that is conducive to the political climate in Olympia. So as a collective group, we are more successful, and that's the goal of the West Sound Alliance. So we've attended those meetings. Given that next year there's not a big transportation budget, we will be cutting down the number of meetings, but still continuing that legislative engagement. Additionally, this session we worked on a bill that had to do with the Growth Management Act, and it really had to do with the comprehensive plan update plan, or the plan that we currently go on through the city of Port Orchard. So Representative Appleton sponsored House Bill 1089, and what that bill sought to do was to bring all of the PSRC counties in alignment so that they are all doing their comp plans at the same time. Now, one unintended consequence of that bill is that it pushed up the timeline with which the city, or the Kitsap County and all the cities within, would need to do their comp plan. Unfortunately, that means that we would be relying on OFM data that's a little out of date. So this bill didn't pass this session, and our hope is to continue working on it in the legislative interim with all the necessary stakeholders so that we can come up with a solution and a bill that's really going to address both issues here. Additionally, we worked on infrastructure funding this year. You'll recall that the Public Works Assistance Account, which is great for local governments with regard to financing local projects, that account has been swept by the legislature in many recent years. So the Association of Washington Cities and many of the city lobbyists have worked together to come up with a solution or a new program that is responsive to some of the concerns that we've heard, and that also saves the account in a way that it's not going to continue to be swept. So House Bill 1677 just passed the legislature last week, and essentially it makes a few changes, but again, you'll see up there capital budget is in italics because some of the loan repayments that are within the bill and the loan list is funded out of the capital budget. So we've heard that there's agreement that the current loan list will be funded once the capital budget passes, and that everything will be worked out. But the underlying policy behind the Public Works Infrastructure account has been moved forward this session. We've additionally worked with stakeholders on Public Records Act reform. This is another issue that has taken many, many years to reach this point. 2 bills ultimately passed the legislature, and there were a number of different really great changes within those bills. Some of those changes include that agencies are now able to charge fees for electronic records. You can go with the default system that's within the bill, which would be about 10 cents per scanned page or 10 cents per gigabyte. Additionally, this would preclude or bar bot requests or commercial requests that come through and can kind of flood this system, and it's for commercial purposes. Additionally, people and agencies can deny requests from those that ask for any and all records. Oftentimes, those are fishing expeditions, and that can be costly as well. Service charges are available for exceptionally complex requests, and there's also going to be a $1 document recording fee with the goal of doing a grant program and consultation program to develop best practices. There is one downside of this legislation, and that's that agencies with Public Records Act requests or costs over $100,000 are going to be required to provide performance measurements on how their systems are working so that we can continue to monitor, which is just an additional obligation that will need to be thought about. So this slide here demonstrates some of the overall impacts of the 2017 session on cities. This year, when proposed budgets came out of the House and Senate, there were a lot of cuts, and there was a lot of concern for how this was going to impact the city of Port Orchard. We thought, or the Senate proposed to cut law enforcement pension and the state's contribution of that, and that would have cost the city about $63,000. Fortunately, with a lot of advocacy, that was not reflected in the final budget. Additionally, the streamlined sales tax mitigation revenue was not cut. There will be a new program put in place through the Marketplace Fairness Act, and that will be phased in. But again, that's not a cut that resulted. Below, you'll see the Marketplace Fairness Act. And instead, what you'll see is that the city is going to be receiving $795,000 between the years 2018 and 2023 as a result of that new system. Additionally, the tax on bottled water that I mentioned earlier will bring $7.4 million in local state sales tax for cities statewide. So that would, of course, be cut significantly by the time it gets to Port Orchard, but a great figure nonetheless. Finally, there are a few different policies on there that I'd like to flag for you. I have 5G deployment and small cell network facilities. My colleague Brianna worked in consultation with the Association of Washington Cities this session to effectively kill a bill that was introduced by the telecommunications industry that would have been a huge local preemption with regard to the deployment of 5G technology. We're going to see that issue in the future, but for this session, no legislation passed. Additionally, business licensing, you're familiar, it's been, a topic of conversation in recent years, how to streamline that process. A piece of legislation passed on that as well. And finally, family paid leave passed this session. Washington State is now only one of 5 states that have a paid family leave program. I'm happy to go into specifics on that as well, but I just wanted to flag that for you as an additional obligation that's coming down the pike. So overall, the city has been really successful this legislative session with regard to playing defense on making sure that we're keeping our state shared revenues, but also making sure that we're bringing money back to the community, like for the Tremont project and for others that are making sure that we're moving forward in the right direction. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have at this time.
Questions for Chelsea? I certainly appreciate the relationship we have with you guys. Everything we saw in there, and in particular the Tremont project this last session was huge for us, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anything else for Chelsea?
Well, no, Chelsea, you were going to talk a little more about Hearst.
Oh, sure, I'm happy to do that. So the Hearst decision came out in October, right before the legislative session, and essentially the way that the Department of Ecology determined whether or not water was available is essentially put into question. So when a local government goes to issue a building permit, they have historically been able to rely on the Department of Ecology to know whether or not they are with good authority in moving forward and issuing that permit. So there's currently a legislative push to see how best we can address that situation, because in rural communities specifically, this is a really big issue, especially for those that have just bought land and are hoping to get a building permit in order to start building their homes. So some legislators have thought that this has risen to the level of importance that we need to come up with a solution this legislative session. We've gone back and forth all session long on the best way to do that. There have just been numerous drafts that have been put out there about how to come up with the correct solution, and as of yet, that hasn't been reached.
Was the Hearst decision state or federal?
That was the Washington State Supreme Court.
Washington State, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, stay tuned.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're on to our second presentation this evening. We've got Commissioner Garrido here this evening with us and some other guests to talk to us about tiny homes.
Good
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Thank you for the opportunity to come and talk to you about tiny homes and about addressing the homelessness problem in Kitsap County. I'm really pleased to see so many people who are interested, and I hope that between myself and the folks who are with me that we can answer questions that you may have this evening. Oh, good, thank you. I do have Monica Bernard from Kitsap Community Resources Housing Solutions Center is here, as is Stuart Grogan, the Executive Director of Housing Kitsap, Tim Blair, who is with Ecclesia Church, but also Project Share, and Jeff Rowe from Kitsap County, Doug Washburn, our Human Services Director, Sheriff Simpson is here, and our League of Women Voters representative for the Homes for All Leadership Group is here. I hope I didn't miss anybody, but I just wanted you to know that there are lots of people who can answer questions if you do have them. So our Homes for All Leadership Group is a sizable group. We meet once a month. Actually, we met this morning from 9 until 11, which we usually do the second Tuesday of every month at the Salvation Army in Bremerton. You can see that it's a diverse group. It may not respond to the diversity that Ms. Vargas was referring to, but I would welcome the opportunity to involve the young people from her group with what we're doing, because there's never too many people working on the important problem of people who have no home and who we can help to find some solution to homelessness. Our group believes that homelessness is a huge problem and that every person should have the opportunity to live in a safe, decent, and affordable home. So just to give you a little background, Kitsap County has had a homelessness housing plan for years. And it has some really, really good goals. Making homelessness rare, making sure that we're preventing homelessness, making it brief, responding quickly to homelessness, the crisis of homelessness, making it one time, helping ensure that people, once they have housing, can maintain secure housing, continuing to improve our homeless response system, which is a good one, but improving the capacity and coordination and efficiency of those agencies that are working toward solutions, and expanding community engagements and developing partnerships across the communities. So in June 30th of 2016, I helped convene a Kitsap homelessness workshop that was held at the House of Awakened Culture in Suquamish. And at that was attended by about 125 people representing 68 organizations in Kitsap County, as well as a lot of individuals. We had the very, very capable facilitation of group discussions by the League of Women Voters and members of the Continuum of Care. They asked groups in the breakout groups like this one that you see here to explore actions about particular methods and potential next steps that we could be taking. And we moved through, we understood that people become unsheltered for a number of reasons, but basically it's because poverty puts many at a high risk for homelessness. It's just as simple as that. So that the cost of housing, we know, we just read, was it this morning or yesterday morning in the newspaper, that there are fewer and fewer houses that are available, or homes, apartments that are available for rent or purchase, and that the supply is low, and that the prices are increasing and increasingly out of reach. So lots of things can put people at risk for homelessness. It can be a divorce, it could be domestic violence, it could be a medical problem, it could be somebody being laid off, aging out of foster care, displaced from affordable housing that they currently have, so that new and unaffordable housing can be built there. Any one of those things, or any one piece of those things, can make a significant impact on somebody's life who is already close to the edge on ability to afford rent. So the scope of the problem in Kitsap, we thought a few numbers might help you just a little bit, knowing that 1 in every 150 individuals in Kitsap County experienced homelessness in 2016. 205 individuals were counted as unsheltered in a 24-hour period. We do the annual point of count in point of time count every year, and actually it's usually in the winter. We're also doing a summer one, and I think it's just next week, so that there will be a second one this year so that we can get a better count. But during 2016, 1,733 individuals lived unsheltered, and that we know of, and there were probably more than that. But we know that encampments, and when I say encampments, I'm talking about people who make their own arrangements. There is no housing provided for them, and they find their own way. Those are already existing in Kitsap County, and I don't remember what year this map is. It 2014? So that it shows you throughout Kitsap County that we actually have quite a few sizable encampments, and so that I know that people are concerned about behaviors that they don't want in their own neighborhoods. And sometimes that's when people are making their own way and don't know how else to find a place that's safe and secure for them and for the folks that live in the neighborhood. But goals that came out of our workshop when we were working on how to address homelessness were first to establish a affordable housing task force. And that's what our homelessness housing program is, our meetings that we do once a month. We explored alternative housing, and out of the workshop, the suggestion that the two most cost-effective and easiest to put in place methods are, 1, boarding houses, and 2, tiny houses. Just so you know, I'm working on tiny houses, but the mayor of Paulsbo has, it was just in the paper recently, but she's worked on creating a boarding house in Paulsbo of a house that the city already owned. So that is happening now, and that will house homeless women. We want to form crisis response teams, and we already have crisis response in many ways, but we want to heighten that capacity and propose a demonstration program to attract state and federal funders. And the method of tiny house homes is really the model project that we're suggesting. So tiny cottage villages are definitely a safe and secure and very affordable housing model, and we want to expand that county-wide. And so I'll tell you just a little bit more about them, if I can stay on track with my notes here, or my pictures, so I know what I'm coming up to. Oh, so we have the tiny house concept. That is used, and we visited a number of villages. We've visited in Seattle, there are a number of them, and in Olympia there is one. And so that we've gotten a lot of understanding that they have a sense of community. We've observed the sense of community as we walk through a community and people talk to us, they show us their homes, they talk to each other, and they're very neighborly. They feel a sense of safety, and they know that their neighbors do too, and they particularly do outreach with their neighbors and do a lot of cleanup within the neighborhood so that people see that they are helping to take care of the neighborhood. Sanitation and waste management is always something that is necessary, and it is provided in all of the villages that we have looked at. Connecting to supportive and property management services, absolutely we have to take care of that kind of management, and we have a subcommittee of our homelessness housing group that does work, Homes for All, that actually does look at the supportive services and is developing a model that we will use initially in Kitsap County. And Monica's gonna, if you have questions, Monica can tell you a little bit more about that. Monica is right there. Of course, access to public transportation is fundamental to any location that would be cited. And we also observed in the villages that we have visited self-governance and tenant rules, so that we saw that not only do they have a sense of community, but they also have a strong sense of responsibility. They make some rules for their own village, and they make sure that everybody has tasks. So you'll see later that they're all fenced and that there is a security shed at the entrance. And so that's staffed by residents 24 hours a day. And every person who is not a resident in the village needs to sign in and sign out. And that's the responsibility of the folks who live in the village to make sure that that's happening. And that's for their own safety as well. And so that's very important to them. No drugs or alcohol are allowed on most of the sites. And there is a tenant application screening process. And I wanted just to make sure that you know that we're not just talking about single people. We actually saw children and families in these villages, and it was like any neighborhood. They literally had they were not very wide, but they had streets or sidewalks where they observed one another's passage or observed certain manners of the road or the street as they walked around their village. So it's a really good feeling to go and visit them and to have them be very proud of where they live and where they take care of it, and we're curious about it, and they want us to know a little bit more about it. So I'd highly recommend that if you're ever interested. I know that some folks from Homes for All just went again on a second field trip, was it just last week? And so some of them have some fresh new ideas as well. So again, we do provide case management or support services, and that would be just one of the necessary conditions of anyone living there. In fact, the same agency that would be helping set up the case management would be helping select those residents who would be there and help arrange what their case management or their support services would need to be. So what's it going to look like? Well, this is one of the ones in Seattle, and you can see down on the right the secure, safe, and self-governed one that has the fence on one side and the shed on the other, the security shed. So if somebody brings in something they don't think should go in, that stays in the shed while they're there. On the left, you see the community bath and shower facilities. The individual houses, of course, don't have separate baths and kitchens. So there is a community kitchen and there's a community bath and shower facilities that are shared by the folks who live in the village. So basically, these are simple and affordable to build. Actually, one of the champion builders happens to be sitting right behind me. This guy's pretty amazing. I've seen him build a number of them. I can't remember quite how many we've done. We've got 6 done already in South Kitsap and another 9 lined up. Yeah, so we are seeing actually, again, Project SHARE is a coalition, if that's the correct word, of faith community in South Kitsap County, and they have really, really stepped forward and done some amazing work on building these houses, and the ones that you're seeing around in South Kitsap have been built by them, and it's very impressive to be able to watch, and they even allowed me to help paint some of them. So again, they're simple and affordable, and if we'll see the next slide, there are 3 that are outside of that one place, or were built outside of that one place, and I think you'll probably recognize them from where you're seeing them around town now. So that's really all I wanted to say, except next steps. We wanted to determine what the care support services that are going to be necessary are. Kitsap Community Resources is going to do that and help us with the selection of the individuals, because I don't know if you're familiar with Housing Solutions Center. It's that kind of one-stop call. Anybody who's homeless or afraid that they may become homeless can call the Housing Solutions Center, and the Housing Solutions Center has a sense of where spaces are and can help house that person, and that is the work that they've been doing for how many years, Monica?
About 5.
Yeah, and so they do it, they're very skilled at that, and so they're going to be able to help us place individuals in this housing and make sure that they have the support services that are necessary as they live there. Refining property management, Housing Kitsap have stepped forward, and they will do the home management, the property management for us. Assessing potential properties. Again, as I said, we need to have transit nearby, available services and utilities, so shopping should be nearby. The permitting needs, you know that I've been talking to your planner, and we certainly have introduced into the county's ordinances the ability to have temporary housing in the form of tiny houses. And then public outreach and neighborhood meetings will give us the opportunity to provide information and receive input. And I am very grateful to you for providing one of the first very, very public opportunities to do that. Questions or comments?
Are you prepared, I know you've got a county-owned piece of property that you're considering locating a village on. Are you prepared to speak to that at all this evening?
We have not decided on any particular one, but the cost of locating, we can purchase property, but the priority is to look at county-owned property if at all possible. We do have one. We have a number of county-owned properties actually, but we want to make sure that it's got services nearby, that transportation is accessible, and that it's an acceptable one for the neighborhood.
Other questions for Commissioner Garrido?
Yes. Commissioner Garrido, what's the cost of these units?
Oh, good question. Thank you. We started out with knowing that to build them, it costs $2,200 for the materials. We have, the Project Share folks have since discovered that, it depends on when and where they're buying, but they have gotten as low as $1,750 for the materials, correct?
Including the final will be about close to 2,000 with the interior and the heat.
Yeah, so they're really affordable. Of course, we would then need to be, the county would be buying the fencing and creating the kitchen and bathroom units, and we're not, the first ones, we actually believe that we are going to be able to access a portable unit that is available from one of the school districts, and that would probably be a very contained unit that would be able to have both the bathroom on one end and the kitchen on the other, and still be a decent place to use.
Is the PowerPoint available?
Absolutely, it can be.
We'll put it on our website.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely. Other questions? Yes, Commissioner.
Can you
Councilmember Chang.
mention that there is a plan for 3 of these villages, or however many, throughout the whole county?
The original concept for Homes for All was to, and the commissioners have discussed this, is that we would have one village in each commissioner's district, and that they would probably start with around 12 in each district.
So 12
Units,
in one village.
Yeah,
in
we
the
need to-
south, central, and
Right.
north. Yeah.
We need to have it manageable enough that we can manage and that it can be successful.
Okay.
One more question. How many individuals can occupy one of these units?
I'm going to leave that to the folks who are helping us place individuals because they know who the most needy are. And I think what I observed when we were at Low-Income Housing Institute's facilities in Seattle, the villages there, I observed that some single moms seem to have maybe 1 or 2 children. There were not lots of kids, but 1 or 2 children. So if you've had the opportunity to look at one of them,
We have one
like
down
the one
at,
that's parked down
on Bay
on
Street.
Bay Street.
That's the size of it.
Yeah. It'd be ideal to have maybe built-in bunk or something like that, but when you think about people living on the street or in a tent, this is still far superior.
Yes, Councilmember Lucarelli.
I'm wondering, many of the homeless actually have transportation as far as cars, vans, that kind of thing. How do you manage the parking and rules about still living in the vehicles?
You think that they would still live in the vehicles if they had
I think they may have friends and relatives. I'm just wondering how that's being managed, and what do you do with the vehicles?
Well, I think any place that you have would need to have, I mean, you would assume that some people would have vehicles, so that there would need to be some parking. I doubt that everybody would have vehicles. And as I recall in Seattle, there were villages that, the one that I visited did not appear to have any vehicles. But I know that some do, and that they do have parking for them. So
I think part of the question was, is how do you police the unwanted behavior? Let's say that the friends
on site.
On site, they bring that car, and then they've got their 3 friends sleeping in the car.
So self-governance is actually an important part of these villages. And of course, they will have support services available to, and working with them isn't individually and on the site as necessary. But they self-govern, they make the kinds of rules that say, you know, this doesn't work for us, the rest of us, you're not fair to the rest of us. And so they can help someone decide that they're not suitable to be there.
Other questions? Yes, Councilmember Chang?
Can you, or maybe Monica, tell us a little more about the tenant application screening process? Sort of what you would be looking for in applicants, and maybe give us a hint of the pool of people that you're aware of that need housing.
Monica's far more prepared to do that than I am.
Hi there, I'm Monica Bernard. I'm the Director of Housing and Community Support Services at Kitsap Community Resources. I started with them a little over 5 years ago to start the Housing Solution Center in Kitsap County, and the goal, as Commissioner Garita was saying, was to provide a single place, not one physical place, because we have a site in South Kitsap, one in Bremerton and one in the North End, and one in Bainbridge, but to provide a single place for somebody to access services, find out where there are units available, find out about rent assistance, find out about supportive services. And so the way we typically do it is when we're working with different types of housing options, we understand what are the screening criteria that that particular housing option is looking for. Everybody that comes in through the Housing Solution Center fills out an in-depth application. They meet with one of our navigators, and usually it's not an instant process of you coming in and we get you into a unit. For some people, it can take weeks or months to get people in. So in terms of the specific screening criteria for this, what we're contemplating, obviously we want this to be a success. We don't want to bring in necessarily the hardest of the hardest to serve out there living in the deep woods with extreme, potentially behavioral health issues, that kind of thing. We're looking for individuals who will be successful living in a community of this nature. And so we will be screening. There'll be a background check screen. It will be behavior-based. The ones that we saw in Seattle were pretty much, single incidents and you lost your residency in the village. And when we went over there, it was honestly incredibly impressive because this particular one that I saw last week was right in the heart of a neighborhood. And that's not what we're contemplating here. But this one was right literally in the middle of homes on either side, front, back, and sideways. And as you can imagine, there was community concern about that when it first started 1.5 years ago. Now the neighborhood groups are coming in and helping with meals, and they're working with the people. It's provided an opportunity for volunteer. And they said the police department in Seattle has reported that crime has actually gone down in those areas because they are self-policing their own neighborhood and they're being part of the local community. So I know it's a long answer to your question about screening, but we want to be very careful up front to get the right population because we're learning too. We haven't done this before and we want to do it right. So we're going to err on the side of caution, be conservative, I guess.
Thank you.
Answer your question?
Great answer. Other questions? Yes, Mr. Clausen.
I'm curious about, and I'm not sure who can answer this question, but about the utility needs. It was mentioned that there's heat in these units. I'm assuming there's power to them. The kitchens and showers, I'm assuming, are hooked to the utilities so that you've got water and wastewater.
Yeah, so we're looking for, a location where.
All of those are available.
Those are available, yeah. Do you want more specifics? Because.
No, I'm
okay.
just curious that, I don't know, is there a meter on each one of these things, or is there a master meter that provides the power? Is it a master meter? Okay.
So the answer to the question.
Meter in each unit.
Is there a light in, I'm assuming lights in them? Thank you.
Yeah, so if you couldn't hear that, the answer to the question was there's a master meter to the site.
Yeah, with individual heaters in each unit.
Yeah, correct.
Is there an estimated or a limitation as to how long a residence can stay in one of the cottages?
As I said, we haven't established all those details, but I believe that Seattle's is 2 years max, or is it 1?
That's the sun.
Yeah, but they're finding, Monica.
It's 2 years, and what they have found in the last 18 months is that on average, the stay is about 90 days. Because it takes about that long for people to kind of hopefully transition into something more permanent, or they end up transitioning out.
One
Other questions?
Yeah,
Yes, Mr.
one other.
Thompson.
If we were wanting to go to Seattle to see one of these,
We can absolutely tell you where they are.
okay, great.
And how
If
to,
you could
and
provide
who to
that,
talk to.
that would be
Yes,
wonderful.
indeed.
I'd like to go
Yeah.
visit one.
I think you'd really appreciate the opportunity to see one.
I would.
Commissioner Greta, why don't you email me a couple of those sites, and I'll share those with the council. And,
Will do.
and, we can
Actually,
seek those
Low
out.
Income Housing Institute, you just contact them, at the person that we will give you the name for.
Perfect.
And they'll set you up,
Wonderful.
yeah.
Any other questions? Councilmember Diener?
I was just going to say, I visited one on the other side, and it was pretty impressive how they managed themselves. And they were very, very diligent, almost militant about how they monitored the behavior and who could come in. And some of the people that came in, they had to be in eyeshot of the shed. They couldn't go into one of the tiny homes without further clearance. And it was pretty impressive about how they all took turns taking care of themselves.
Interesting. Thank you.
Well, again, thank you for the opportunity to tell you about it, and I really appreciate the fact that you were interested in, and so many people in the community are.
It's a huge crowd. Thank you very much. Council, we want to take a 5-minute break. You're more than welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting and provide comment, but you're also, if we took a quick break, if some folks wanted to leave, we'll provide you that opportunity to do that. So, thank you for coming tonight.
5 minutes?
5 minutes, yeah, we're gonna take a 5-minute break. That's,
And they all took care of
New materials list he's working on it.
I can't believe it. Yeah. And they all had, they rotate shifts. I remember I was standing there talking to the lady that was running there was 2 people running the entry point. And somebody brought in a person that obviously didn't live there. And they're like, all right, we got to see you. You can't go in the tiny home because they hadn't really checked it out. And that prevent people from going in and doing what they do behind closed doors. But then they had other rules and regulations. It was pretty impressive. But they took it very seriously because if they broke the rules, they're out of there. This was my ballot. It's Nicholsville, I think is what it's called. They went by Ballard Street. I don't know, about 2 miles from somewhere. Very impressive.
Excellent presentation. You did a great job.
Well, I know that the county's got a site they own in St. Louis, and it's already spun up some people. So I don't know, it's gonna be interesting. Oh, yeah. I mean, I totally get it. Well, so there's that site, there's their old church there. The old church there across from the facilities maintenance building. It's the only abandoned church in the city. Yeah, that's a site that's ripe for tearing that thing down. It's in pretty bad shape. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I used to be there. Yeah, me and another division, and they shut down in '06. So I'm sure, and it was all. None of it was according to today's code, so it'd be pretty rough to do. But I mean, maybe it'd be worth looking at, seeing if it's salvageable. Good job. You thought of the house on Cedar or the church where the ECD tree? That would be a great site. It's God's work. Yeah, I know. It's in bad shape.
So,
Right. Yeah, the structure needs to be torn down.
Mark.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm happy to. I know.
All right, we've been 5 minutes. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
I don't use this thing very often. But I will.
Well, that was effective.
I know it. We're going to reconvene our meeting. So either please take a seat or step out of the room if you want to continue your conversations. Okay, we are to our business items for this evening. The first is item 7A, which is the second reading and adoption of an ordinance amending the 2017-2018 biennial budget to include the Tremont Widening Project. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Patonsu, members of the Port Orchard City Council, citizens of Port Orchard. This is a budget amendment which the council heard at our last meeting, and it's worth noting that this is an $18 million budget amendment. Actions involving amendments to the budget take 2 readings. This is the second reading of an ordinance amending ordinance number 4016, adopting the 2017-2018 biennial budgets, subsequently amended by ordinance number 1017 and ordinance number 1317. The city budget is written to capture revenue and expenses over the fiscal period. During the biennial period, changes to the budget in both revenue and expenditures need to be recognized by budget amendment. This budget amendment was contemplated as part of the 2017-2018 biennial budget process. During the budget writing process, the city had not identified all of its funding sources and was in the process of completing Tremont Widening Project bid documents. The city successfully identified and secured project funding. The city awarded a construction contract with Active Construction Incorporated. The city funding partners provide a Transportation Improvement Board $8 million grant, a Federal Highway Administration $1,744,727 grant, a $2 million LEAP project appropriation within engrossed bill 5096. The remainder is to be paid from proceeds of a City of Port Orchard limited tax general obligation bond and from Water Sewer Utility Fund number 401. The amendment approves project revenue and expenditures for the complete project. Budget authority will lapse at the end of the 2018 calendar year, and remaining project revenue and expenses will necessarily be budgeted in the 2019-2020 biennial budget. The budget amendment ordinance reflects the following: $8 million grant revenue from Washington State Department of Transportation Improvement Board to Street Capital Fund number 304, $1,744,727 grant revenue from Federal Indirect Grant Washington State Department of Transportation, Federal Highways Administration, to Street Capital Projects Fund Number 304, $2 million grant revenue from Washington State LEAP project appropriation with engrossed Senate Bill 5096 to Street Capital Fund Number 304, $5.8 million revenue from proceeds of a City of Port Orchard Limited Tax General Obligation Bond to Street Capital Funds Number 304, $17,544,727 from Street Capital Projects Fund Number 304 for Tremont widening construction, $498,245 from Water Sewer Utility Fund Number 401 fund balance, $498,245 from Water Sewer Utility Fund Number 401 for sewer improvements during the Tremont widening construction. The Council Finance Committee recommends adopting an ordinance amending the 2017-2018 biennial budgets to include the Tremont widening project revenue and expense. Thank you.
Councilmember Clausen.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance amending the 2017-2018 biennial budgets for the city of Port Orchard to include the Tremont widening project revenue and expenses.
Second.
Councilmember Clausen, could you turn your microphone on for us? We can hear you a little bit better. Thank you.
Do it again?
No,
Okay.
I think we heard you, but
Good, sorry.
you were just a little soft. Okay, we have a motion and a second for the budget amendment for the Tremont widening project. Comments or questions? Councilmember Chang.
I have my standard reminder that I am currently and still a employee of the Washington State Department of Transportation, which is involved in item number 2, grant revenue. However, I am not directly involved with this, and I do not materially benefit from it. However, if someone feels that I'm biased and should not vote for this entire measure, I will be happy to recuse myself.
Anybody wish to, Mr. Chang, to recuse himself? Seeing none, you get to vote. All right, other comments or questions? Okay, we'll be voting on the budget amendment for the Tremont widening project. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion is approved.
Thank you.
The budget ordinance is approved. We're to 7B, adoption of an ordinance to adopt city code classification. Ms. Cates.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. On March 28th, 2017, the City Council passed Resolution Number 01317, declaring its intention to adopt for the City of Port Orchard the classification of non-charter code city, retaining the mayor-council plan of government under which it currently operates, and thereafter be governed by the provisions of the optional municipal code, Chapter 35A RCW. Resolution 01317 was duly published in the city's official newspaper on April 7th, 2017. More than 90 days have elapsed from the date of the resolution's publication, and no timely and sufficient referendum petition has been filed pursuant to RCW 35A02035. Pursuant to RCW 35A02020, in order to effect the reclassification of the City of Port Orchard from second-class city to a non-charter code city, the City Council must enact an ordinance adopting for the city the classification of non-charter code city. The recommendation is to adopt the ordinance as presented.
Mr. Kachardi.
Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance pursuant to RCW 35A.02.020, adopting the classification of non-charter code city for the city of Port Orchard and retaining the mayor-council plan of government under which the city currently operates.
Second.
Multiple seconds over here. Okay, we'll go with Mr. Donlin. Questions or comments? As a motion maker, you could speak first if you'd like, Mr. Kachardi.
Go ahead.
As to earlier testimony about initiatives and referendums, I would like to see that we pick that up as a discussion item. I think when we had our town hall meeting, we set that aside as something that we would need to have a greater understanding about, and I think the time has come to engage that.
And I would add to that, I think that the discussions we've had as a council all along is that while this gets us a bit of a new toolkit and brings us into the 21st century as far as some of the abilities that the legislator has given our cities in the state of Washington, we made it a point not to package anything with this. That we wanted to take these one at a time to be able to, go out and solicit public feedback. We hear all the time the importance of the public process, and I think for us to go about this, just like what you're saying, Scott, to bring this up and go through a public process on amending things that we're not doing today, but perhaps we're enabled to do into the future, and I think that's what the county, or the council has continued to say all along, is we're starting with this first step, and as we go to make changes, then I think to invite the public and to give feedback, and then to move accordingly.
Other comments?
I would just
Councilmember
comment that
Ashby?
the initiative referendum issue is only one of the options that would be available to us as a non-chartered code city. So there are several other elements that we may want to bring forward in the future. And I agree with you. I do think that it is responsible of us to start that conversation, fairly soon.
Mr. Clausen?
And I just want to confirm that by this action tonight, we essentially are, if you will, adopting or accepting our current code, so there's really no significant changes.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're bringing our current code forward as a
As
charter-
part of the new
as a code-
designation of Code
yeah,
City.
as a
yes.
code city. Yep.
It's a historical day.
So, yes. Tremont and Code City on one day. So, Councilmember Chang?
I'm comfortable supporting this ordinance as written, but what I'm wondering as part of the discussion is if we want to mention perhaps the first module to consider is initiative and referendum, and do we want to put a time frame on that? Like maybe just study it within X number of months. I think as Councilmember Ashby has said, there are several items that we will want to discuss. This is one of the most visible ones that we keep hearing about. Would a one-year time frame, for example, be sufficient time? Or
What I've, and Councilmember Ashby and I were talking about this a bit at the AWC conference we went to. We did a biennial budget. We don't have a budget process this fall, and we talked about possibly our November work study. Instead of it won't be budget-driven, that we have some sort of a strategic planning session, because there's only we're pedaling pretty fast here at City Hall. We've got a lot on our plate with Tremont, with some well projects. There's just a lot going on. We need to go about this strategically and determine what's a priority and when we're going to get to it. So I would suggest that we, have a strategic planning session here this fall and set those priorities. What do we want to do first? Because as we heard, there's a number of options that we can enact. One of the ones I'd like to see is updating our financial policies. Currently, the clerk and I sign all the checks. I'm not sure why the clerk, other than as a second-class city, state law determined that most cities, it's the finance department or the finance director and the executive officers are signing those checks. So there's some changes I think we need to make to our financial policies too. But we've gotten along just fine the way we are. We have a number of options we can consider now. Mr. Clausen?
Kind of along those lines, the thing I was thinking about is, as you mentioned, there are a list of options, and it's difficult to pick which one is the most important unless you see that list and understand the basics of that list. So to me, the first thing we would want to do is let's look at the menu and then make, as you suggest, we could do it in place of budget development, but we then are basing our priority on somewhat of education on what's available.
Other comments or questions? Okay, we'll be voting on an ordinance, to adopt an ordinance pursuant to RCW 35A, adopting the classification of a non-charter code city for the city of Port Orchard and retaining our mayor, council, plan of governance under which the city currently operates. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None, the motion carries. We are to 7D, adoption of a resolution approving a contract with BHC Consultants LLC. for the-
We actually have 7C.
I skipped C, didn't I? Okay, well, how about we go back to C? How about 7C, adoption of a resolution consenting the transfer of ownership of the franchise for Wave Cable. Who's that? That's Ms. Cates again.
Me again. The City of Port Orchard has a current franchise agreement with Wave Division 4 LLC for the provision of cable television services to the city. Section 18, subsections A and B of that franchise agreement, a copy of which was provided with the packet, provides that the ownership of Wave Division 4 LLC shall not be transferred without the prior written consent of the city, which consent shall be by the City Council acting by ordinance or resolution. The franchise agreement also provides that any change in ownership of the franchisee shall make the franchise subject to cancellation unless the city has consented in writing to such change. Pursuant to the further requirements of Section 18 of the franchise agreement, the franchisee has provided an application to the city with the information required by law to allow the city to make the determination of whether to consent to the transfer of ownership of the franchisee. A copy of this application has been provided for your review, and there are copies at the ends of the dais. The recommendation is that if after reviewing the application, the City Council determines that it will serve the best interests of the city to allow the transfer of ownership of the franchisee, it is recommended that the City Council pass a resolution to declare the City Council's consent to such a transfer. If the City Council determines that such a transfer will not serve the best interests of the city, the Council may decline its consent and decide to cancel the franchise agreement. It should be noted that if the city does not take any action within 120 days of the receipt of the franchisee's application, which is dated June 16th, 2017, the city's consent will be deemed to have been granted.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I hereby move to adopt a resolution to declare the City Council's consent to the transfer of ownership of franchisee Wave Division 4 LLC as being in the best interest of the city.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? Questions?
If we were not to allow this, we don't have anyone, another vendor at this point that would be able to provide these services to our citizens.
And cable service hasn't worked out well for Tacoma. So I wouldn't recommend we take that up.
Not seamless like.
Okay, other questions?
I guess one question for the attorney. By us approving this transfer, it's not really going to affect any of the services that are currently being delivered in Port Orchard?
Correct. There's really no change to the services that are being provided within the city. It's really a change in name only of the parent corporation.
Okay, other questions or comments? Okay, we'll be voting on adoption of a resolution to declare the City Council's consent to transfer the ownership of franchise Wave Division 4 LLC as being in the best interest of the city. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Now we're on to 7D, adoption of a resolution approving a contract with BHC Consultants LLC for the 2017 Water System Plan Update and Procurement Procedure Documentation. Mr. Dorsey.
Thank you, Your Honor, council members. On March 2nd, 2017, the city's Public Works Department selected 4 qualified firms from the current MRSC professional services roster, and you can see that within Resolution 01117, Exhibit A attached, for the main category Design and Planning and subcategory Comprehensive Planning. Staff then scored each statement of qualification and selected BHC Consultants LLC as being the most qualified professional services engineering firm for the project. On July 17th, the city received a fee proposal from BHC Consultants in an amount of $134,007 for the 2017 Water System Plan Update. As the scoping requirements of the plan update increased with addition of new wells 12 and 13, the original 2017 budget authority established for this task was not adequate. Public Works staff developed and presented a viable strategy for the funding shortfall at the 2017 June Utility and Finance Committee meetings. And if you look down to fiscal impact, $45,000 was originally allocated within the approved 2017 budget for this project. It's proposed to utilize $90,000 from Fund 401. And also, another note, the relationship to the comprehensive plan, that this is a state mandated process for documenting the changes included in the water system plan, and especially relating to new well 13, new well 12, and well 11. Therefore, staff recommends that the City Council adopt Resolution 011-17, thereby approving Contract 025-17 with BHC Consultants LLC in the amount not to exceed $134,007 for the 2017 Water System Plan update and documenting the professional services procurement procedures pursuant to RCW 39.80.
I move to adopt resolution number 011-17, thereby approving contract number C025-17 with BHC Consultants LLC in the amount not to exceed $134,007 for the 2017 Water System Plan update and documenting the professional services procurement procedures pursuant to RCW 39.80.
Second by Councilmember Diener. Questions? Comments? Okay, we'll be voting on the contract, where are we here? With BHC Consultants LLC for the Water System Plan update. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We are on to 7E, adoption of a resolution approving a contract with BHC Consultants LLC for the 2017 water and wastewater on-call engineering services and procurement procedure documentation. Mr. Dorsey.
Thank you, Your Honor. Council members, on July 5th, 2017, the city's Public Works Department again selected 4 firms from the current MRC roster. That's a resolution 044-17 attached as Exhibit A for main category engineering services, subcategory sewer system planning and design, water system planning and design. Staff then scored each statement of qualification and again selected BHC Consultants as being the most qualified professional engineering services firm. On July 6th, the city received a fee proposal from BHC Consultants in the amount not to exceed $140,000 for the 2017 water and wastewater on-call engineering services. As current and projected development within the city of McCormick has increased, and as some of the proposed upgrades to the water and sewer capital plant are substantial, and as Ordinance 018-17 amending the Municipal Code 1304 grants the authority for a pass-through review fee, the Public Works Department will need engineering support and review when plans are submitted by the developers. The fees associated with the review shall be collected by the city from the developer and passed through to BHC. And again, in fiscal impact, pursuant to Ordinance 018-17, amending Municipal Code 1304, passed on June 2nd, 2017, a 10% fee shall be included on the pass-through review cost to cover city staff time in coordination with the developer. All costs incurred will be passed through to the developer. Staff recommends that the City Council adopt Resolution 044-17, thereby approving Contract 049-17 with BHC Consultants in an amount not to exceed $140,000 for the 2017 water and wastewater on-call services and documenting the professional services procurement procedures pursuant to RCW 39.80.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I move to adopt resolution number 4417, thereby approving contract number C4917 with BHC Consultants LLC in the amount not to exceed $140,000 for the 2017 water and wastewater on-call engineering services and documenting the professional services procurement procedures pursuant to the revised codes of Washington 3980.
Second.
A motion and a second. Comments or questions? Okay. Be voting on the resolution to approve BHC Consultants LLC for water and wastewater on-call engineering services. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We are on to 7F, approval of a special event application, Port Orchard Bay Street Association, Trick or Treat on Bay Street. Clerk Reiner, Mr. Dorsey?
Yeah, I think I was gonna, I took that punt. So Kathleen Wilson, who spoke earlier with the Port Orchard Bay Street Association, submitted an application for the POBSA Trick or Treat on Bay Street event to be held Saturday, October 28th. This event will begin at 4 p.m. and end at 8 p.m. The association is requesting use of city property and street closures of Bay Street and Frederick from Harrison to Sydney, from Bay Street to the ferry terminal with transit routing available. Trick or Treat on Bay Street proposes to bring safety to the growing popularity of the annual Trick or Treat event. They are anticipating about 2,000 people attending. Port Orchard Municipal Code 5.94050, paragraph 4, subparagraph 4, requires council approval of an event with streets or highway closures that are not exempt outlined in Resolution 024-17. This event falls within the council's policy on streets or highway closure. City departments, South Kitsap Fire and Rescue, and Kitsap Transit have reviewed the application and have submitted their recommendations and/or comments, which have been provided to you. If council finds the event will not seriously inconvenience or impair the general public's use of public property, services, or facilities, then staff recommends approving the special event application as presented.
Councilmember Donlin.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the special event application for POBSA Trick or Treat on Bay Street to hold their event using city properties and allow for street closures as presented.
Second. A motion and a second. Discussion?
I've noticed on the application that police are going to be involved, and I just want to know if that's going to be borne by the city or if that's going to be cost of that be borne by the association.
Clerk Reinerson isn't here this evening, so I can't. Typically, it is passed on. We have a handful of events that are grandfathered, and I don't believe this is one of them. So I would assume that the event organizer is bearing that cost.
Okay.
Yes, Councilmember Dina.
So this better event sounds pretty cool, and I'm looking forward to seeing it, and I'm hoping that it will become an annual event that becomes a bigger draw.
Councilmember Ashby?
Yes, I have, I appreciate what the Port Orchard Bay Street Association is trying to do, and to make it a better event, they've added additional activities, and they've moved it to Saturday, hoping to alleviate some of the traffic issues. However, when I look at the traffic plan that is cited in our document, I think what has been created is much, is very much more unsafe. I'm not saying that is unsafe compared to having the youngsters move across the street across Bay Street at designated crosswalks. For the public that can't see, they're asking for Bay Street to be closed from Frederick, which is
Dance gallery.
yeah, by the dance gallery, the pavilion, all the way to Harrison Street, and then they're asking the feed store, and then they're asking for Harrison will be open, but Sydney from Bay Street to the ferry terminal will be closed. But what they're taking is all of the westbound traffic through down Harrison and through the parking lot and coming out at the bank. There will be the children at that point. There will be cars moving in and out of the parking stalls, and children will be walking randomly through the parking lot. Now that, and the event is from 4 to 8, and so it will be getting dusk and it will be dark. And all the eastbound traffic is going up Rockwell into a neighborhood. And this is all happening when we have Tremont under construction, and there will be more traffic in that area during this time. It's very hard for me to support this particular traffic plan. Also, in reading the material presented to us, the city's Public Works Department does not support the event application, and the city's police department does not support the closure of Highway 166. So I would like Public Works, if Mr. Dorsey could give us his reason for not Public Works' lack of support for the application?
Well, well, South Kitsap, I guess the important takeaway is that South Kitsap Fire, Port Orchard Police, and Public Works all did not support the application. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway. I don't want to speak for the other departments. I can just, and, you know, I work with Kathleen all the time, and, you know, I hate opposing her. But I think the issue, and so we've had a number of conversations over the years that had to do with parking, that had to do with street closures, that the unintended consequences of that, having to tow vehicles, having to post signs, the amount of time that it takes. We don't just go out and put a flag up and say, hey, we're closing Bay Street. I mean, there's a lot of time and effort that goes into preparing the plan, organizing the plan, getting the signs up. The actual closure itself is it's a process to start routing the traffic, and it's all very synchronized. You know, closing of parking lots where people have cars, you know, that are coming from Seattle. So these aren't new topics, and I think the Public Works Department has been very vocal over the years on those sorts of unintended consequences. I mean, this is a big deal. This isn't like, hey, we're going to close the street. And I think probably the reason that you had those three departments not support this application, and I don't want this to sound glib, but it's kind of like, at what point is enough enough? My fear, quite honestly, is, and as a lot of you know, that I fought down at the state legislature with, at that time, Senator Kilmer, to not have Highway 166 closed. I had to testify before the State Transportation Committee, and because Governor Gregoire wanted to close 166 along with other spur roads, and they were successful in closing a lot of state highway spur roads.
When you say close, you're referring to transfer the ownership to the city?
Transfer the ownership.
From
Not
state to
close.
city.
To
State to
transfer
city,
the ownership.
okay.
We were successful mainly because there was a disconnect between RCW 4724 and RCW 3518. They contradicted one another, and that was really the only reason why we didn't have complete ownership of the highway, which means ownership of the asphalt, the striping, the signals, the sidewalks. I mean, it's a big deal. So there's a part of me that's very concerned, and I've actually heard comments from the police chief and the Department of Transportation and the State Patrol that if we continue to keep closing the state highway, at some point they're just going to say, look, we don't want to be involved in this, is going to be your highway. And we'll be back down at the legislature arguing to keep it. So as much as I would like to support this, I just really can't, because again, there's too many unintended consequences, as Councilwoman Ashby mentioned, with traffic being routed off of Main Highway, with Tremont under construction and increased traffic. You're just taking traffic and either putting up into a residential area, or you're having trucks and cars driving through drive aisles and parking lots, where I just think it's safer to keep people on the sidewalks and in the crosswalks, and not create that potential nighttime unintended consequence of now you're taking traffic through non-traffic areas. So, you know, that's ultimately my reasoning.
Thank
So.
you. And I would like to remind council, if council's not familiar with it, but I believe our traffic count is anywhere from 13 to 15,000 cars a day on Bay Street. So there's a lot, that's not all in those 4 hours, but there is a lot of traffic that goes through there. And I just can't imagine routing that traffic westbound through that back parking lot. I mean, and having kids getting in and out of cars, it scares me.
Councilmember Chang?
I want to agree with what both Mark Dorsey and Councilman Ashby have said, but this map also will not work, and I think we may have to work with the association to come up with a smaller area, maybe north of Bay Street. For example, this is saying you're going to go east on Prospect. You cannot go east on Prospect, east of Sydney. You go up a 45-degree incline up to Seattle. That is not a recommended route. So I think the intent, though, was to have a contained area, and I would support this with a revised area, maybe not closing Bay Street, but perhaps devoting the parking areas. I think you'd concentrate the areas for maybe
The
the trunk, the
activities.
activities.
Well, the traditional closure, as you know, for, I'll say chimes and lights, not the Jingle Bell Run, because that obviously is a lot more involved, but it's to close Bay Street at Kitsap and Klein, take all the traffic up Kitsap to Rockwell. You know, now the only issue with Rockwell is if it's poor weather, you're taking everybody up and down the steepest road in the
But
city.
don't you, excuse me, but I thought they came down at Sydney. I thought it was closed
Well,
just from,
there's different closures. So they could come down Sydney, but that doesn't solve this particular.
that's correct.
So you would basically be talking about doing a route that took everybody up Rockwell to Kitsap. And at that point, now you have kind of a bigger unintended consequences. Now people can't get in to park. So it's really, it's not a simple solution because, again, it's Saturday, it's at 4 p.m. So it's November. Are there any football games going on that Saturday? College games? Are people going to be going there thinking that they're going to park their car and go to a Husky game and then they're going to come home and they can't get out? So I think that's just the general feeling of Public Works is, you know, I know that the POBSA and the council typically don't deal with all the phone calls that the police department, Public Works department get when they can't find the car or they are trapped in and they can't get out, or, you know, there's a lot of frustration that we deal with. And again, I think my general sense is if it can work with just keeping the roads open, we have a number of runs that council hadn't supported and staff hadn't supported because they wanted to have a lane closure. Once they said, look, we're just going to thin it out and keep it on sidewalks and shoulders, things have been great. You know, the Seagull Run, there's that one that goes all the way to Manchester. There's a number of runs where they just said, look, we're not going to close streets, and they've turned out just fine. I think you add an element of complexity and potential risk by closing a number of streets, especially Harrison. You know, Harrison, you can't take a left out of there legally, and if you make it to where they can't get to Sydney, they're going to come around and then they're going to try to go east and they're going to take an illegal left onto Sydney because it's one way there in front of Kitsap Transit, right? So there's just a lot of unintended consequences of closing the highway and closing Harrison.
Appreciate the observances of Councilmember Ashby and Mr. Dorsey's that background. And I'm wondering if maybe there could be an alternate plan to not closing the street, but perhaps, and I don't know this if we can do this, but perhaps temporarily lowering the speed limit and putting advanced signs for the streets approaching Bay Street, letting people know so in time if they want to take another route they can do that. And that would slow traffic down to a more manageable level, and then the police can you know, escort kids across the street at
I think that would be a potential viable option if the city had, Public Works had been successful in purchasing reader signs in past budgets, but they're very
Business item
expensive.
7N.
Our other challenge to that is we're going to have Tremont tore up this winter.
Right.
This is where you're going to have to drive.
Yeah.
Here, Sedgwick.
Yeah.
Right, you're gonna.
We have kids out there. One way to help.
I would
is to
continue
slow down
on
the speed.
saying, you know, none of us know what the impacts of Tremont's going to be yet, right? And so I think it's early on to be looking at this. I don't tend to be in favor of closing down Bay Street for all the reasons that we've already heard testimony to. Well, I love the fact what Pops is doing, bringing community together, bringing community downtown, and for the safety of the kids, I think is fantastic. And I just wonder if, maybe we look at moving this up a little bit when the businesses are open on Saturday. Do it Saturday afternoon when the sun is shining, because it is going to be dark by 5:30 p.m. Can we create a win-win of having a light outside? We could staff, additional volunteers to make sure that we are using crosswalks. So I think during the day with volunteers and adults out there keeping our kids safe, I think the 25-mile-an-hour speed zone is probably fine, so I don't know we'd have to go there. But I think we can get to yes on this just by working together. I think the concept's fantastic, and I think we all want to support community. I just think there are so many variables right now that we just simply are unaware of, that to maybe bite off this much risk at this point is a little uneasy.
I guess, speaking to the speed zone change, so again, it's state highway. The city does not have the authority to change speed, so you would have to get approval from State Patrol and Department of Transportation to do that. And I don't know if they would determine if there was an inherent risk by changing posted speed limits. So I think that would be an option if the state agencies supported that. And again, you would do that through a reader board sign, which they can be rented, but they're fairly expensive to rent.
So,
Mr. Mayor?
yes, Mr.
Oh,
McCloskey.
just a comment. Although I think it's a creative idea to come up with a lower speed, I think it's not terribly practical, because I don't know that, enforcing it would be a real challenge. And you're already at 25, expecting people to go to 10 or 15 is, and the majority of folks, I think, will continue, no matter how big the sign are, at 25.
Right.
So I think you still have the potential for danger there. And I, like others have mentioned, I have major concern with routing traffic through the parking lot. That parking lot is just not designed for that kind of travel, and you're putting in conflict, to be somewhat parochial, back with not only the buses but the foot ferry and people walking out the foot ferry and trying to cross that much traffic would be challenging.
Councilmember Diener?
So I think we've heard enough new information tonight or additional information tonight that maybe we should continue this and perhaps continue it for a month, which would give the Bay Street Association opportunity to perhaps come up with an alternate plan, or maybe a couple of alternatives.
Or is the
I'd like to see us continue this, and that's my motion.
Continue it, or do you deny it as presented and then?
Well,
Is there a timeline that we've established for events to get approved for? I know there is a timeline if we were to consider closure of 166.
Right. There's a certain amount of time that advance time to close the highway. I'm not, Brandy would be able to speak to the,
Yeah,
to the
I know
event
we're in
application.
July and it's October, but
Time gets away.
it does. If
I don't know
we're,
that
if
we
we're
need
gonna
to
continue
deny
it
the
because of the
application
traffic.
so much as see a revised application.
What- Excuse me, if we're gonna-
What I'm hearing is
Oh, wait.
that the concern is closing 166 and routing the westbound traffic through the parking lot. I don't think the council has any concerns about the event itself. It's just a street closure. We would like to see the event move forward, but without the closure of 166. I don't know how we feel about the closure of Frederick or, I know we can't close Harrison because of transit. But I don't know how we feel about the closure of, the section on Sydney.
So are you offering an amendment that would approve the application with no street closures? And then deal with the rest of it?
I have concerns that we're boxing Bay Street
Right.
Association into a corner with that.
If the recommendation wouldn't be to approve the application with no street closures, I would recommend that the applicant come back and meet with police, fire, and public works, kind of like we do with the cruise and some of these other events, and try to come up with a workable solution. But I can tell you that, again, the closure of 166, it's an issue, and we've had a number of events that continue to want to close. Harrison in particular, we've had the carnival, we had the weightlifting event, and I know it's problematic during certain hours and certain days with transit. Again, I have concerns of people being forced to take a left by the feed store and getting a ticket for that. So I would just suggest meeting, and we've had successful meetings with groups. I think the first Jingle Bell Run, kind of fell flat until we were able to come up with some alternatives on lane closures and things. So that would be my suggestion.
Austin?
Mayor, I would suggest that we continue this versus approving pieces and parts or not approving it, and then that would allow the event organizers and staff to come up with something that's gonna be acceptable to Public Works and the police department and so on.
So are you
I would make that as a motion that we would continue this to,
2 weeks from tonight?
that would be fine.
Well, does that give the Bay Street Association enough time to look at their alternatives?
We can
How about till
continue it
August?
again if need be.
Okay.
So that's, our next council meeting is 2 weeks from tonight. Is that Mr.
20
Clausen?
Second.
A motion and a second to continue this 2 weeks from tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So we continue it to 2 weeks from tonight. And with the goal that the applicant meets with Public Works staff and revise the street closures. All right, we are on to 7G, approval of the June 27th council meeting minutes. Is there a motion? Councilmember Ashby?
Before I make a motion, I want to make a correction to the minutes.
Okay.
Or at least I want to see if other people remembered this differently than I did. It's on page 141 of our packet. It's under H, adoption of a resolution approving contract with SCJ Alliance Consulting Services. And the paragraph under that, it says, Community Development Director Bond noted that his wife works for the selected firm on this project. I remember him saying she works for the firm but is not involved with this project.
Right.
So I would like that correction in the minutes.
Yes.
And with that correction, I would make a motion to approve the minutes as corrected.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the minutes from the June 27th meeting, and I believe I'll have 2 abstentions from Ms. Lucarelli and Mr. Chang. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And 2 abstentions. Okay, minutes are approved. We are to 7H, and maybe I could just run these over to the clerk to put them up so see what we're talking about. So this past week, we had a situation where someone loaded a trailer up with some hazardous materials, and we tried to get it impounded and couldn't. Tow company didn't want to take it. Imagine that. And so Public Works has taken it out to the Public Works facility. We've got a proposal, a little less than $1,500 to dispose of the material, and then we'll crush the trailer up and dispose of it. But we have to get the tires and other things out of the trailer first and dispose of them. And we'll be taking, there's one sentence in our new procurement policies that don't allow the mayor to approve any contracts of any amount without council's approval. So we'll be taking a look at that at council, because we've had a couple of these situations for small dollar amounts where we need to take action and do it quickly, and we got to wait for a council meeting, and we needed to deal with this. Fortunately, we were able to tow it. If we hadn't been able to tow it, I'm not sure what, we just didn't want to leave it. It was parked on a residential street, and we wanted to get it off the street, so.
Any idea who dropped it off at all?
We don't, we have no idea at all. We just got a complaint that it was out there, and Public Works staff wanted to deal with it. So we have towed it off, and now we need to dispose of the material. So with that, I ask that this be added this evening.
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve you to execute that contract for the removal of the hazardous materials.
Up to
Up to $1,500.
$1,500, thank you. And a second? Any other questions or comments? Okay, we'd be voting on approval of a contract to dispose of the hazardous materials in the trailer up to $1,500. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. So we are on to our council committee reports. We'll start with finance. Mr. Clausen, do you have a report?
Just that we have a meeting scheduled for the 28th at 7:30 a.m. here at City Hall.
Okay, economic development and tourism.
Yes, we did not meet on Monday. Our next meeting tentatively will be August, the second Monday in August. It's at
Okay.
9 a.m. here in council chambers.
Okay, is the utility committee met?
We will be meeting this next Monday at 9:30 a.m. here in City Hall.
And actually, that
Change to that.
meeting's been canceled, and I think the three of you, Mark's asking the three of you get together to coordinate a new meeting time and date.
Mark has proposed August 14th.
August 14th, because Thomas needs to be there. He'll be gone the 21st, and I'm gone the 28th, so the 14th. But if we can move it to 10:30, so it follows right behind economic development, that'd be awesome.
Okay. Some back-to-back committee meetings there.
Okay, so the next utilities meeting is August 14th, Monday, 10:30 a.m. here at City Hall.
All right, thank you. Land use.
We skipped over sewer advisory.
Oops, sorry.
The next sewer advisory committee is September 20th, and that will be at West Sound Utility.
Okay.
Land use
Land
gave its
use.
report at the last meeting, and our next meeting is July 19th here at City Hall at 7:30 a.m.
Okay, thank you. Lodging tax, do you have any?
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, if I may, I'm not going to be able to attend, so I'm not sure if there's another council member that could fill for me on the land use committee. I will be out of town.
What day of the week is that?
Thursday, Wednesday?
Wednesday.
Wednesday, the 19th.
It's 7:30 in the morning.
I could be available unless someone else wants to be there.
Go ahead, I have another
I'll
commitment.
already be there.
Thank you.
Okay. How about lodging tax? Do you have a report?
No, the committee will be meeting in the next few weeks. I'm going to be talking to Janine to send out a poll to see what times are good for them.
Wonderful. Festival of Chimes and Lights?
We do not have a July meeting, but we will be meeting probably the August 14th date here at City Hall, 3:30.
Okay. Report of the mayor. We've got a nice thank you card here. I'll pass it around from the Sydney Arts Association for the loading zone that you guys approved and Public Works has installed. So they just wanted to send out a thank you to you all and to the Public Works for doing such a quick job of creating that loading zone. If you haven't heard, the passenger-only ferry started on yesterday. And this morning, the transit board met, and I'm your representative on that board. And we voted this morning, the Saturday service, there's 10 round trips. I think they run from 9 a.m., correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Clausen, till 11:30-ish?
The last sailing from Seattle was at 11:30 p.m.
11:30. And so transit is now picking up that window of time that we were supporting from 7 to 9, and now also from 9 till that last arrival there at midnight. So there'll be foot ferry service from Bremerton to Seattle till midnight now on Saturdays. So you'll be able to connect with that passenger-only ferry to your events in Seattle.
Port Orchard to Bremerton.
Port Orchard to Bremerton.
Oh, till 11:30.
Till, actually.
That's very exciting.
Until midnight. the
That's
last
very
one.
exciting.
Yeah, so, yeah, it was,
And that's through,
Saturdays.
through
That'll
September.
be through September when the
Yeah,
fast ferry converts to the winter hours.
yes. So at least through the summer season, we'll have foot ferry service that coincides with the high-speed ferry. Next step on Tremont, we've got a pre-construction meeting coming up soon. And then the next public meeting related to Tremont is an open house here in the council chambers on the 27th. Anyone wanting to attend? Or we'd love to see this many people here again. So come visit us on the 27th, 6 p.m. for an open house related to the Tremont project. And that's all I have this evening, and we're on to our next citizen comment period. So is anyone wishing to address the council? Please.
Directors.
Oh, department, I skipped the department heads.
You wanna
Man,
get
oh
out of here,
man.
don't you?
Mr. Dorsey?
There's not much going on in Public Works these days.
There's not much going on in Public Works? That's all you've got?
Now that Tremont is transitioning to our CACM team and the assistant city engineer, my main focus right now is the evaluations that I'm behind on, is Bay Street Segment 3. That's,
The Pathway Project, yes.
yeah, and then of course we have well 11, well 12, well 13, water system plan, all those other things that Thomas is working on. But yeah, we're like slammed. So, but at least we got a big one off the plate. So.
And we're in the process of moving the planning department over to the new building. So we've got that open house planned for next month. So that's in process. So, Mr. Martin?
Tomorrow morning, we have, at 8 o'clock, we have the entrance conference for the 2016 audit with the State Auditor's Office, and the Finance Committee will be attending, although Chairman Clausen will be absent. The proposals for indicative rates for the up to $6 million borrowing for the Tremont project deadline is tomorrow at noon. So if we have any private placement proposals, they'll come in, we'll review those on Thursday, and we'll make a decision whether or not to accept one of those or to reject those and go out for placement of public securities. So that we'll know a lot here in the next day on that. So that's it for finance.
Ms. Cates?
Nothing for me this evening.
Okay. Now can I do public comment? Yes. All right.
Well, okay.
So we are to our second public comment period. If you just raise your hand and address the council, and you've got 3 minutes. And please state your name for the record, even though I know you.
Mr. Mayor, council member Sharon King, Chair of Fathoms of Fun. I wanted to come officially thank you for allowing us to have our 50th Grand Parade on Bay Street. I thought it was quite smooth, considering that we lost our guru of the parade, Jesse Turner, 26 years chairing that parade. It was a grand parade, and I want to say that your costumes were absolutely wonderful. I thought that you guys, being the street workers, did you see them? They were cool. They were really cool. Oh, you've got it. It was a really great parade. Sunday, we had 2 dinghies in the Derby, which next year we expect more, because we have kind of revamped that process and challenged several people to put a dinghy in the Derby. The crew race, we will have competition out here next year on the waterfront in Sinclair Inlet. Jake Breeson, the high school coach manager, just did an absolutely marvelous job doing an exhibition for us as it was, and it was exciting to be in there seeing all of that, and I look forward to bigger and better things. The other thing I wanted to thank you for is allowing the carnival to come to town. I hope that you all had an opportunity to go down. I understand that Saturday night was really hopping and it was really busy. I didn't get down on Saturday night, I got down on Sunday. But we have plans that we want to present to you for next year and lay out some dates ahead of time so that the carnival can schedule on their calendar for next year. And hopefully you will allow that to happen again. It was exciting to hear the comments from the public that says, yay, the carnival is back. It was exciting to hear that. So I just wanted to thank you, the police department, the public works department, and all of the citizens who came and helped and participated. And especially for the parade, it takes a great group of people. And so we'll have a thank you in the paper on Friday, so please look it up and read it. Thank you.
Others wishing to comment? Yes, Mr. Otto.
I'm Tony Otto. I'm a local attorney, and as you know, we recently settled a suit with the city over the condition of Kitsap and Sydney, a bicycle accident that happened there. My client is working right now. She wanted to be here, but she gets off work in 15 minutes in Kingston, so she wasn't able to make it. This accident happened, Pam O'Neill had been riding a bicycle to and from work for about a year, never had an accident. She decided to take a different route coming down Sydney, and she encountered, a car was passing her, so she needed to move to the right. She could only move so far to the right because of the cars that were parked on the side of the road. You can't move right next to the cars because someone might open a door. So she was exactly where she was expected to be when she encountered a very rough patch of the road. The road actually steered her bicycle, turned her wheel, and pitched her over the handlebars. She had a helmet on. She landed on her head and shoulder and fractured a clavicle, punctured a lung. She was in the hospital for 10 days. When she got out of the hospital, she went back to the site to see what it was that caused her to crash. And what she found was this very rough condition of the roadway, where the slabs had actually shifted so that they were as much as an inch higher than the other. We did some public disclosure requests. After she saw the condition of the road, she came to me, and I went there and I helped her to document the scene. If you could move that down a little bit, you can see that this is a full inch slab running that direction. We hired an expert who said this was a very dangerous condition because when you're riding a bicycle, it was parallel to the direction of travel and you can't see it. And so when you have a differential like this, it will steer the bike, steer the tires of a very experienced bicyclist and make them lose control, as she did. We took pictures. These initial pictures were taken, the first ones that you've seen were taken in 2009. We were able to get the case settled. Mr. Dorsey testified as the city's expert, and he indicated that the city does need to address this area, but for budget. And it was similar to the comments of Mayor Patonsu in the paper that, you know, we have priorities for our budget. I'm here in part to make some suggestions for a low-cost way to make this safer for bicyclists so that people don't encounter these kinds of rough surfaces and lose control of their bicycles and have a similar kind of devastating loss as Ms. O'Neill did. One of the things that in these photographs, we could see that the city in the past had patched with cold asphalt patch trying to level the surface. Mr. Dorsey estimated it could have been 10 to 30 years ago, that nobody had really addressed it since then. We couldn't find any records of that actually being done. But one thing that I can see from having taken pictures in 2009 and 2017, this condition hadn't changed. It was a little bit more worn, but the slabs weren't going up and down. The slabs weren't causing bigger gaps. So there are some, flip a couple
Close
more,
to
please.
wrapping up, Mr. Otto, because
Yes, I
you're
will.
3 minutes.
I see that the city has been grinding pavement so that up near the courthouse so that there aren't tripping hazards. This is a similar kind of situation, and grinding probably is an inexpensive solution. And also, a couple more, please. And the patches are very inexpensive. $13 for a bag of patch. The city could get it for well over under half that, just to level the area. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Others wishing to comment this evening? In the back there, go ahead.
Mayor, council members. My name's Elizabeth Nafchi, and I live at 719 Sydney, which is near one of the potential sites for these cottage homes at Sydney and Taylor. We have an improving neighborhood. We have new homes and vacant lots. We have old homes that are being renovated, including ours. This is in spite of having the county facilities. We have the jail where people are let out. We have work release. We have all sorts of other interesting things planned by the county. But it's still a good location. Our costs in Seattle, which have skyrocketed. I know the average house in Seattle now is $722,000. A two-bedroom apartment is almost $2,800 a month. So the costs in Seattle, plus the additional hiring at Puget Sound Naval Shipyard, plus a better commute with the fast ferry, which I've ridden, it's wonderful. This is a time to develop our area. we have a green commute. We're reusing existing properties, including land, which is close to all the hookups and utilities. This generates more sales tax and property taxes. And this is actually a really good green solution to increase and maintain our density. Now, the county has been kind of a bad neighbor. And we vote for people that respect and serve the communities that voted for them. And it's time to say that this is not a good site for this type of property. You can see that in Seattle, that will not maybe lower the property values. Here it will. When Seattle has a fever, we have like a maybe little half a degree increase in temperature. So a lot of our neighbors, this is their only asset. And I would say that this is not a suitable place. This is a suitable place to move in more people who are commuting and to locate a facility like that where there are services and not in the middle of a residential neighborhood where their neighbor is the jail. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Others wishing to comment? Yes, Mr. Velist.
Hi, good evening. My name's Vaughn Velist, and I live downtown area here, and I actually work in the downtown area, and my family, we have different properties in the downtown core, and I'm fully behind the idea with the homeless people. You know, we're all one tragedy away from being in that situation, and what my point is I question the location of this Taylor and Sydney that's proposed. I just heard about this Friday. I had a note on my front door, and I've done some thinking about it, and some of my experiences that I've had is, we've got properties downtown that the street people defecate on the property. They sleep upstairs of the building. I get people panhandling, asking me for money. And today there was a guy that was high on something that was making all these motions down the street. And I talked to one of the local policemen, and they were well aware of this individual. And, there's a lot of this stuff that's currently going on. And I look at this city as a beautiful place, and, I want to invest in it. And, I don't see this as good advertisement for future progress in the city, this proposed location. I thought even, on county property or even in the industrial park or something, a location there that's out of, the little bedroom community that's downtown here, where there's a West Sound Treatment Center. There's resources there. I'm sure it's still on the bus line to get to wherever. There's no grocery stores downtown here for these people. It's just not, it's not here in my feelings. And I support the idea 100%, but the location I think is terrible. And I don't think the city of Port Orchard needs another shot in the foot. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Yes, sir.
Good evening, City Council. Robert Parker.
You can raise that microphone up if you'd like.
Thank you. I said good evening, Robert Parker. I'm on the other side of the coin with the tiny homes, and I come before you tonight telling you that I am one of the major people that killed the methadone clinic in Bremerton because it was in my neighborhood. I also tell you that was one of the huge mistakes that I made. People got hurt. People didn't find housing. People didn't get the help, and I get to live with that. The people that we're talking about helping, they have substance abuse problems. They have mental health problems. They need help. Housing Authority, they have 2,100 applications that went towards 100 vouchers. That's not help. We've got to get these people out of the woods. You have all of your social services coming forward and saying, we're going to deliver help there, and we're going to do it in a huge way. That makes financial sense for you. You're going to pay for them out in the woods. You're going to pay for them with all kinds of other issues. You are going to pay for these people. Let's do it cost effectively. How much of a problem do we have? If we have a problem and these people are managing themselves inside of this community, the sheriff's department's across the street. You think they're not going to help? Don't make the mistake of turning these people away. They need our help. I sit on your 0.1% mental health advisory board. I can tell you I deal with that data in a massive level. I go to all kinds of meetings. I went to 2 this week. Spent 3 hours with the police departments, the area police departments today. These people need help. I was pitching this tiny homes thing to your law enforcement today because I believe in it. And believe me, if I didn't have the data to back it up, I wouldn't be standing here and saying, I killed the methadone clinic and I hurt people over the NIMBY thing. I was the guy with the torch. I was the guy that was willing to run people out of town. And I heard a lot of people doing that. Don't hurt these people. They need our help. They're our neighbors. I'm on the Tiny Homes Committee thing, and I got on it because I owe you guys. What you may not know is my son was one of those people, and you fixed him. So for 4 solid years, I've caught your back and went to every meeting and read every proposal and went to everything, including tonight, to support what you guys did for me. And what I'm asking you to do is do it for those other people that need help. Don't listen to the run them out of your neighborhood, run them out of your city. You're going to run them to Bremerton, and Bremerton's going to run them right back here, and we can chase them with cops back and forth and pay a ton of money to do that. Or we can help them. This is the cheapest model that I have seen, period. You can build another Bay Vista, and that's going to cost you a ton of money. Or you can do things like this, and it spreads that crowd out all over this county, not centralizing them in Port Orchard.
Parker, can you wrap up your comments? Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Shabazz Nafchi, Mr. Mayor, council members. Thank you for having us here. My wife eloquently spoke about our position about this homelessness. I totally agree. We totally agree they need help, but this is not the kind of help that they need. Not mentioning they are directly across the street from my house, our properties. We are working people. We are also real estate. We invested a lot of money in the real estate locally. We voted for Fast Ferry, John, when you were pitching that pitch. And we saw some genius in that kind of thinking, and we voted for it, and I'm glad it passed. What is happening is we are spending millions of dollars across the water, across the Sinclair Inlet, at the Navy, to build up infrastructure for what is coming in our directions. City of Bremerton is investing tremendous amount of money to house a lot of new sailors coming into the areas. And why are we going backwards? Why aren't we rejuvenating the city of Port Orchard to invite these people and families and children to move into our neighborhood to become good, law-obeying citizens? We heard about self-governing. What is that? Taylor Avenue is a one-way street towards Sydney. The police department and the sheriff department, no offense, cannot enforce one-way street rules. How could self-governing community look after our interest? There was a reason many years ago that the street became one-way street because of big accidents. Did you know there was an accident in front of my house? A car was coming wrong direction. A car was going down Sydney. They hit each other. Both sheriff department and city of Port Orchard do not have any accident record on that. How could it be possible? Sheriff office is right across the street from my house. It happened during the daylight. So we are opposing this initiative. They call it everything except for correct word for a term. The term for this place is not an affordable home because they are not buying anything. The name of this place is Shack, not anything else. They give it fancy names on these flyers, and they have fancy pictures in here, and they don't even know how many people are going to be living and how they are going to screen these residents. One of your council members was accompanying Commissioner, Kitsap County Commissioner, when they were putting the flyers on them. Until 4 weeks ago, we didn't even know this was happening right across the street. We've been living here since 2005. 4 weeks ago, we found out about it. This is not having the community involved into the decision-making process. None of those people who were on the board, they made this decision, or they made this selection, or they are proposing this location, live in the close community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Actually, over here, she raised her, yes, you were next. Then I'll come over here.
Good evening. I wasn't planning on talking, but my name is Raylene Scott, and I just want to say a couple things. No one's saying that people that live in these homes cannot hold jobs. They're going to be doing a screening process, and in these things, we can have functioning people. They don't have to be the hobos with coffee grounds on their faces like we see on TV. The people will have access to grocery stores. They'll be right on the bus line. They'll be right next to the ferry where they can go to DSHS, KCR, all these other places that are going to be able to help them. These can be used for abuse victims, women that leave with their children. This is the kind of thing that we want to help. I see what people are asking for in this community all the time on the local Facebook pages, and they say, we really need something. But when something is being presented, we want to naysay it. Instead, let's offer our solutions, is what I'm asking everyone here, to make this palatable for everyone. More voluntary interactions, all of us having full transparency in what's happening. As a fiscal conservative, I see that Robert Parker is 100% correct. When you see how much the dollar amount is on people that are the troublemaking homeless with mental illness, with criminal history, with drug problems, these people have to be through programs. Drug court is like 80-something% effective. I mean, when you look at this, we need to get these people in programs, and if they have the option for a home, then this is something that might get them going. And there was always going to be some people who don't want to be helped, but the people that do should have options. Now, I also want to talk about this kind of thing coming in is going to be wonderful for opening up homes. We talk about Seattle people coming in and that we don't have the homes for this. You know, the future could be tiny homes. They don't have to be made like shacks. They can be small, efficient, green technology. We could be fiscally conservative, and people can own small plots of land, and if they take care of them. I do agree that ownership is wonderful, but this can be owned by our community if we do it. And how many people have been coming together to build these? We care. This community cares. People from all walks of life are working together. We're talking about both sides of the aisle, you guys, or everyone is coming together to build these because we know there's a need. There has to be a way. Thanks.
Thank you for your comment. Yes, ma'am, over here.
My name is Corinne Chris. I'm Resource Coordinator at First Lutheran Community Church. I'm also with Project Share. And a couple quick things that I would like you to take into consideration are causes of homelessness: poverty, unemployment, lack of affordable housing, poor physical or mental health, drugs and alcohol abuse, gambling, family and relationship that are broke down, domestic violence. Out of all these things, I've named 8 reasons why there's a cause of homelessness. 2 of those 8 reasons seem to be the main focus in this conversation. There's another 6 reasons why people in this community need help. As a resource coordinator, I have helped many, many people in this community, and I find a very small percentage of people that fall into this category of drug and alcohol abuse. Many people come to me because they've been burned out of their homes. There is one, there is one place in Bremerton for people that houses 34 or 35 people. with a 10-person waiting list to get in. So if you are not able to get in there, you have nowhere to go. So what is a woman to do who comes from fleeing a domestic violence situation? The mission is full. There is winter shelters, but this time of year there's nothing to offer her. So where do these people go? How do we take care of them? Another thing to consider is the fact that in this community, the people that suffer with mental health and drug issues, we incarcerate them. They go to the hospital. They are homeless, and hazmat has to come in and take care of those issues. All of these things cost a lot more money than if we would just begin to house them and help them. And like I said before, there's a small percentage of people that truly don't want help or need help. I believe in a sense of ownership. That map that was shown to us in 2014 about all the different areas of homelessness, that was in 2014. Imagine what it is in 2017. They're already here. They are here and they need support and they need help. Seattle is the third largest city in the United States for homelessness. So if you don't think it's going to come over here, it's going to come. It's here. So are we going to send them back and forth, back and forth? Bremerton back here, Bremerton back here, back to Seattle. At what point do we make the decision to help these people? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Yes, ma'am, here in the back.
Thank you for having me. My name's Carrie Christopherson, 709 Harrison Avenue. I feel like I'm really on both sides of this. I have a house that my grandmother built in 1932. We've spent a lot of time and effort to make our homes valuable, and it is our biggest asset, is our neighborhood. So you can understand that we are worried that once this is open, that our home values would go down. Is there any way to find out what the home values are around those other homes in Seattle? That's a really big concern for all of us. In saying that, I'm also a lead teacher for Head Start at Givens Community Center, and I work with homeless families. I have so many single moms just living in their cars. They've done nothing wrong. They don't have family and friends and people to help them. I truly believe that there is a need for that. But in saying that, how strong is the vetting? How strong is the screening? How do we trust that they're going to bring the right people that we're going to fit in these homes, that aren't going to make these homes bad for other people, bad reputation? So is there a place that we can continue to watch and monitor how this is working and how the vetting system works? The other part I'm wondering about that, when you say there's a huge power meter for all these homes, if anybody lives in the city of Port Orchard, you already know what your phenomenal fees are for living in the city of Port Orchard. Do we pay for that? Does the county pay for that? Or does this now also become one more thing that the city of Port Orchard people get to pay for? So I think that's one of my other my concerns. I hope that we will be empathetic to homelessness, but it's in our neighborhood. Is it in your neighborhood, in your neighborhood, in your neighborhood? Is it across the street from your house? Fred and I walk that neighborhood every night. We see each other walking through there. So I think that we should just keep an open mind, and I'd really like to know a place or a website that we could do more research. And why this spot? Is this just a proposal, or are you guys really deciding, and is it you that decides where these homes come? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Yes, Alyssa, here. Yeah, we'll get to you next.
Alyssa Whittleton, back again. I've been listening to this argument and I'm thinking, or not argument, but points being presented. And on the street we live on, Tracy, up by the high school, we have a lot of homeless people that are walking back and forth. And we have a neighborhood watch, so we have a police officer that comes and talks to us and lets us know what's going on. And apparently we have homelessness back behind us in the gully. And I would not wish for anyone to be moved into a neighborhood where they were not welcome. But for myself, I would welcome the homeless tiny homes, because I think that it would be a benefit to us to have them living in a constructive, positive place. I mean, we're talking 12 max, I think, in one particular area. And to have it orchestrated the way that it was disclosed, then to see them going back and forth and feeling like you can't help them. I mean, I've talked to a couple of them, and their circumstances aren't what you would think. One fella was hit in the head with a baseball bat, and it impaired his brain, and he's a dear person, but you'd never know that by looking at him. You know, he's very scruffy, and your first impression is, gee, I don't know if it's safe to talk to him or not. And I've had that happen with other individuals as well. That said, I would say, why don't we take a poll and find neighborhoods where they are welcome? Because I really do think in our circumstance, I would trust that our neighborhood would embrace them. And we do care about our property values. The house kitty corner to us sold for $1.5 million. You know, we're not all the same. We're a real mishmash, but I do think we care about our community in this way. That said, I would like to thank the police department for the 4th of July. They did an awesome job once again. They have consistently done that since we brought our problems to them. And it was much better than it ever was in the past. Thank you. And also Public Works always does their part with the signs. So thank you on that. And also I wanted to thank you for bringing up the subject of the initiative and referendum. That's real important to us, and thank you for thinking about talking about it. Thanks again.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Yes, ma'am, in the back there.
Hi there. My name is Melinda Carlson. I've lived in Port Orchard, been blessed to live in Port Orchard for 28 years. So there's some criteria that I didn't hear that was addressed. And so what was the criteria to pick the location? And why did it take so long for us to hear about this going on in Port Orchard? I mean, I read The Independent whenever possible. I read all the articles. To get the best feedback from your community, you need to inform us. So, you know, keep the information going, because that's a good thing. Is there sweat equity involved for maintaining the proposed bathrooms and kitchen that would be part of the properties? Because somebody has to be responsible. And I understand that it's mentioned that they would be self-policing, if you will, but still it has to be maintained, or else you have vermin issues, especially this close to the water. Are the tiny homes going to be energy smart wherever they land? And then the income stream, you know, here's the cost of what it'll cost to build it, what will it cost to maintain it, who pays to maintain it, and then so if they're paying a small stipend for their rent, but they're only going to be there 90 days, and you have hundreds of applications for those that are in need of a location like this, I see there's a huge potential. So I don't see where the income that would be received will really actually help maintain the property necessarily. And then also too, rather than doing a tiny home communities, why don't we use one of the properties we have in South Kitsap, North Kitsap, Bremerton, vacant buildings. We have multiple vacant buildings that may already have plumbing and power already set up, where apartments could be set up. Why aren't we using the ghost buildings out there that are just empty? Because part of it's already there. You know, it might not be zoned correctly or whatever, but why don't we look at more options than just our neighborhood? And, you know, and it is probably 4 blocks from where I live. And we have a daycare close by. We've got kids galore. So I hope that the criteria would be such that they'd really be paying attention to looking at the current community there and the safety of the current community there. Because I've always felt safe in my home, but twice I've received a phone call from my husband. The scanner's going off, and you need to get in the house and lock your doors. 3 blocks from the jail. Get in the house and lock the doors. I love hearing that, don't you know? So It doesn't happen often, but I don't want to have to worry anymore. I got my red light. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Yes, Jerry? Go over here next, and then I'll get Tim. Oh, no, go ahead. Okay, well, there's another person behind you, too, so, ma'am, if you would like to, yeah.
Hi, can you hear me okay? I have a little laryngitis. My name is Anna Rope, and I live on Smith Street over here in Port Orchard. My husband was going to come when he found out about this, but he had to work, so he asked me to please come. We moved to Port Orchard from Auburn. I don't know if you folks are familiar with that town, but we had a lot of problems with crime, with homeless men following me around constantly. I couldn't even go to the library in the daytime or go anywhere. That's how bad it was. There was so much crime, and it just made me very frightened and full of anxiety. And we moved to Port Orchard because this is such a peaceful place, and I can finally go to the library in the daytime and walk around where I couldn't do that before. But when we heard about the tiny house, we received this note on the door talking about the house. We didn't even know these things were going to be built. And then not too long ago, I saw there's an alley by my house, and that's where one of the tiny house sample is, right by the alley. And I thought, why would you put that by the alley? That doesn't really seem like a good place to live. But I'm concerned about the screening of the people that are going to be there. Are they going to check for sex offenders? I'm concerned about noise and the sanitation, because where we live is peaceful, and I'm just concerned about that it's going to be noisy and we won't have that peace and privacy anymore. I'm also very concerned as a woman because I am a rape survivor and a crime victim, and I just really don't want to go through that again, okay? And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Anna, is there a contact on that sheet? Is there an address or any kind of information?
Okay, why don't you hand it to the clerk? We had, Tim, go ahead. Either one of you. Arm wrestle.
I really appreciate the input of the neighborhood.
Tim, why don't you identify yourself?
I'm Tim Blair. I'm on the Homes for All Committee. I'm a pastor of a church, the South Kitsap Fire Chaplain, for 12 years, and I volunteered at the food bank and lots of places. And if I had the property, I would put this next to my house. I've visited multiple occasions. I've toured the villages in Seattle, and they are well organized, well vetted, well security developed, and so we are looking at those paradigms. And also in Eugene, Oregon, there's several really well developed villages, and we're looking at all of their paradigms. And so I would say we did begin talking about the whole concept about 2 months ago. We began posting things on the Port Orchard Facebook page about we're going to be doing this in South Kitsap and then Central Kitsap and Northern Kitsap. So it's hard to get. We don't have an official website yet. We just really began the whole process about 4 months ago to actually look at the development of this. So this is really a new thing, but we're not remaking the wheel. We're actually creating something using the paradigms in Seattle, in Eugene, Oregon, and several other locations across other states. And so I'd like to answer a few questions in the next few seconds. I've been taking some notes. I am part of a partnership. I have been speaking at churches and organizations. I've been going out for the last few months, and it's amazing the groundswell of interest to be involved in this and the partnerships that are developing. I received an email on Friday from Kaiser Permanente, the regional manager, who would like to build 3, and they would like to build bigger ones for families. They want to get involved in this. We did a day of carrying at the fairgrounds a few weeks ago in which we built one there at the fair. Now it's being housed temporarily at a Presbyterian church on Nels Nelson, but it's going to be at the fairgrounds during the county fair in August. But all these organizations are wanting to get involved. So whatever happens and wherever it is placed, there is going to be a massive amount of partnerships of people and organizations involved in this. And so it's not going to be a group of unsavory characters are going to come sliding in there at night, creating crime in the neighborhood. It's actually going to be case managed by the most reputable organizations in the county that will be vetting and background checks and putting the most workable individuals or families with kids in the location that's selected. So I would say there's going to be a significant amount of care. And I would say it's going to benefit the community because the amount of focus, the amount of energy, the amount of cleaning, the amount of things that are going to be going on in that site is going to be phenomenal. And so it is going to be a benefit. And so I would have it in the kinds of houses we're building, and each house is going to be basically a bedroom. And so we're bringing in a portable from a school district in the area. We're going to remodel that. It's going to have bathroom facilities. It's going to have a kitchen facility. It's going to be a wonderful, money's going to be put into it. And we're raising money. And we have organizations, we have businesses wanting to raise money. And so we're going to do as much as we can through non-public funds. So I say it's a wonderful opportunity.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Yes, ma'am?
My name is Linda Langford, and I live on Taylor Street East, which is also part of this neighborhood. And I want to say I got one of those things on my door, too, which was the first I'd heard of it. And my first thought was, here we go, the NIMBYs. They have this image of all the homeless people. They're all drug addicts. They're all, mentally ill, et cetera. And that is so wrong. That is so wrong. And I think this would be a great thing to bring to our neighborhood. And I think the site, if it's the one I'm thinking of, where the little house was placed across from the jail there, if that's the site we're talking about, which I think it is, that seems like an ideal site. Easy access to downtown and, the transportation from there, all the buses that go all the different ways, easy to get over to the stores, the grocery stores via the buses, the services that are downtown here, being right across from the jail, having the sheriff and the police all right there. I can't see that there's going to be any, issues in terms of that kind of safety. I would really like to see this in my neighborhood. I think it would speak very well of who we are as people and as compassionate people who want to help others get a leg up. I've certainly needed it in my life at times, not quite this desperate, but I know I could be there, any of us could be there. And I don't believe it will affect our property values. If anything, it might improve them because the homelessness situation around the rest of the area, could go down, and the problems that we have with that could go down by helping people get a leg up to be part of the community and to share all the benefits that we have. So I just want to let you know that I am a neighbor who is very much in favor of this proposition.
Thank you for your comment. Yes, sir.
My name is Jacob Kars. I live on Smalley, which is just an offshoot near where this proposed site is. I just want to clarify from what I'm hearing between people, I don't think anyone's arguing that there's a homeless issue and it should be helped. I think people are arguing the proposed site. I, like most of the people who've addressed the council, said that we just found out about it. That's a little bit disappointing. It worries me. Doing this commute that I do to the shipyard, I see a lot of the people who come over to the courthouse already. I don't want to make any judgment, but they don't seem like the most upstanding citizens. And placing a homeless camp directly behind the courthouse where they could potentially hang out, where it's self-policed, I just don't like the idea necessarily. That's really all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else? Back over here. Go to you next, sir.
My name is Ora Stiers, and I've been homeless for about 2 years. I was shipwrecked in Canada, homeless in 2 different countries. I had to get back on my feet, and I'm I'm sorry, but this is not a solution. It is not a solution. I'm telling you why. Because there's better ways of doing things. When I was in Canada, they had full-size, like, hotel rooms. You know, basic hotel rooms, basic, you know, it wasn't much, but, you know, it was standard. Everybody had their separate place, and it was safe. You know, I don't know if they could do that down here because it's a personal accountability thing. There are tweakers, there are people that have major issues. You can't necessarily do the tiny house thing here, you know, and make it safe for people. You know, it's, I mean, it's not an easy thing to say, you know, these people should be homeless. But, you know, I think there are better solutions to things. I mean, we could use green energy, and you could have tanks with water and have it come off the roof and go through a filtration system. I mean, I have so many ideas that we could help people. And the problem is like, nobody cares, and these people need jobs. They don't have the income to pay for anything. It's because there's not enough jobs. I mean, I just got back on my feet, you know, and I live in this neighborhood. You know, I really don't want the harassment of some of these people that I know aren't good people. You know, I grew up with a set of standards, but not everybody is grown up with a set of standards. They need classes to help people get back on their feet. People need the help that they need for, like, mental health issues. I mean, there's a lot that's more, that hasn't been addressed, you know, and it's not just a tiny house problem, it's a people problem, you know, and that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Sir? Yes.
Good evening. My name is Curtis Coley. I'm an admin of the Crime Watch page, about 5,000 members, so I'm kind of up to date on what's going on in the community with crime. I also spend a significant amount of time downtown. I have a reason for being down there a lot, but I had the opportunity this last year to talk to many of the homeless people that are down there. You know, sometimes they need a handout, sometimes they need a meal, but after a while you get to learn their story. And most of them are, they don't want to be there. They need a place where they can feel safe, they can take the time to regroup, to gather themselves, and to become a productive member of society again. You know, and I hear this word, or you know, the term 90 days to 2 years. You know, we're not asking a lot. You know, they're going to turn more people over, they're going to get jobs, you know, they're going to try to help themselves. Now, as far as the vetting, I think the vetting process would work pretty good. You know, a lot of people have police records. You can go back through their, you know, through social services and find out what their problems are. And I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea to give people the opportunity to change themselves. And by giving them a place to stay, this gives them that chance. And personally, if I had the property, I'd put it on mine as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Sure, why not? I knew you were waiting.
Come on down.
I didn't get a notice on my door, so to be honest, I've been...
Browy's here.
You're right. But I also didn't even look at the agenda tonight. I just show up. So I'm not talking on this issue right now because I don't know enough about it. But what I wanted to say was, at the last meeting, I complained about the sewer clanking, the cap clanking, so waking me up at all hours. And that was a Tuesday night, and on Thursday there was a person from the Public Works Department there trying to fix it. And I talked with him, and he said he couldn't fix it because it was so broken that they had to redo some work on it. But they were there on Friday, and it was fixed, and I haven't heard a clink that I have been hearing for the last couple of months, and it's very nice, and I notice it every day that sewer cap is not banging the way it was with every car that went over it. So I am thanking you very much for getting that done so quickly, because it was becoming really irritating. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, yes, yes, sir. Here in the back. On off.
Awesome. Walk around. Hi. Hi, my name's Don. I am currently a history teacher for middle school and high school, and I'm also a student in pursuit of higher education, and that's the key word I want to say is education. I think information is crucial because the more information you have, the less scared you are about the unknown. I find that to be very common when people make incorrect assumptions and basically misconceptualize other humans. I recently just came back from a trip from Oregon, and I was actually pretty surprised to see what I saw down there. I just found out about this meeting today. I came back actually today from my trip, and so I didn't find out about this meeting until recently as well. However, what I saw in Oregon was pretty neat. I never had seen homeless encampment communities of that nature, because I myself went homeless when I was 17. I was priced out of my house in San Francisco, California, where the rent went from $800 to $7,000 in the next day, and we had 30 days to come up with the rent, and we had first dibs to live there. So my whole entire family went homeless, lived in shelters, not fun, about 200 people to one massive lounge where you clutched your clothing to hopefully not get robbed at night. I would be one of those individuals if I went back in time. I would be welcoming to a private little dwelling, even if it's not an actual home. I would have been much more comfortable with that kind of privacy versus an open room. However, it varies per person. And these kind of proposals are not meant for all the homeless populations. There's such a diversity to it, like anything else in civilization. There's a lot of diversity to a lot of variation in mentality. And so I would welcome it, and I know some of the homeless friends that I had growing up would have welcomed it, maybe not other people. And I think there is a screening process, and I think we should try to be a little bit more positive when it comes to new ideas and try not to think of the negative right away, and hope that with time, we will always work towards providing more solutions as they come up. In Oregon, they dealt with problems the first week, the first month, and 3 months, and it keeps on improving. That's all I have to say. Thank you guys for listening to me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, by the way, I live across the jail, very cute jail.
Kathleen.
First of all, I want to thank the council for looking at the proposal so closely for the proposal for our permit application for the Port Orchard Bay Street Association Trick or Treat on Bay Street event. Unfortunately, I think that some of the site plan or the route map for the traffic was a little bit misconstrued. We were not planning on routing traffic through the back parking lot. In fact, we have security placed there in order to prevent that from happening. It would just be the buses and the cars that were parking in the parking lot that would be leaving through that traffic pattern. So I'll be working with the police department and the public works department, looking at the comments that were made on the first proposal, and coming back to you in 2 weeks after talking with the Bay Street Association as well, with a revised site plan for the traffic that will be easier for you to understand. But thank you so much for continuing that. And also, I really just appreciate the fact that this was a great forum for all different opinions to be heard. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to comment this evening? I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight. And, you know, I know some folks out there felt that this was, the train was on a track, and honestly, this is the first time the council has heard this issue, and it was here to gather information, gather input, and hear about a problem and potential solutions. So I just want to thank you all for coming and sharing your opinions with us. It's neat to see this many people in the meeting. Come back next week and we'll talk about sewer manhole things and all kinds of other exciting things. Love to see you here. So with that, our meeting's adjourned.